Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in part 8 of What If the Transformers crash landed in Code Geass. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Dance of Metal and Fire. Lelouch sat on top of a large steel container in a vacant spot inside the Ark. It appeared to be a half-flooded cargo hold along the side of the submerged and inoperable vessel. He wasn't alone however, as CC herself just happened to be swimming in the ocean water near him, and even Bumblebee was present as Lelouch looked over the applicant requests of people wishing to join the Black Knights. However, the yellow Autobot's optics widened slightly at the applicant file of a man named Diethard Reed. A Britannian, huh? Bumblebee bleeped in surprise. I'd hoped a few would sign on with us, but I didn't think it'd be so quickly. Well, I wouldn't worry. Lelouch voiced. He looks too confident to be a spy. Even so, I'll have Fix-It look this guy up just to be sure. Better safe than sorry. Bumblebee answered as he sat down next to Lelouch's spot as the teenaged revolutionary was on equal height with the Autobot's chin from his vantage point. Isn't it wonderful how the number of recruits keeps growing? CC said in an emotionless tone. Glad to see you're so overjoyed. Bumblebee rolled his optics as he tried to voice his sarcasm. You know, this translator I have makes it easy to understand you, but I have no idea if you're being sarcastic or not. Lelouch said in a humorous tone towards Bumblebee, who chose to ignore that statement. But still, this turned out to be much simpler than I thought. Well, given all that's happened in Japan these last few years, people are looking for a hero. Bumblebee said. Let's just hope we're able to deliver. I'm sure we can. Lelouch replied. People expect results and we'll deliver results. But is that all you're trying to get? Results? Not too worried about how you get them? Bumblebee asked, causing Lelouch to look at him somewhat suspiciously. I trust you Lelouch, but I don't want this all getting to your head. Remember the last time you let your ego take control? Before Lelouch could answer, CC already voiced her opinion as she stepped out of the water. You ended up walking right into Cornelia's trap. And if it weren't for Optimus, you'd probably be dead right now. Lelouch gave an annoyed sigh. Don't remind me. Don't worry, I learned from my mistakes and it won't happen again. Let's hope not, Bumblebee bleeped. And the same goes for all the Black Knights. They've scored a few good victories against Britannia, but the cons are a completely different story. You make a good point. Lelouch replied. Aside from Colin and Arcee's encounter with that spider con they told us about, or that mess with the Energon Harvester, we've never really had a full-scale battle against the Decepticons. To be fair, it seems like a few of the Black Knights can hold their own. CC pointed out. Colin's no slouch, and even Rai has a few surprises up his sleeve. But not everyone in the BKs is an expert fighter, Bumblebee said. And even if we got Wheeljack now, we only have a handful of Autobots against who knows how many Decepticons. Well then, we'll just have to take the necessary steps to make sure we're ready. Lelouch said as he closed his laptop and stood up. Some group called Kyoto is sending us some nightmares. We can have Ratchet and Fix-It tweak them a bit so they can handle the Decepticons. CC gave something of an amused chuckle. All the preparations in the world can only do so much when you finally come face to face with the real thing. That is a very good point. Bumblebee responded. Yes, I was demoted from my position, in very much the same way you were. Diethard said towards Jeremiah as the soldier's eyes narrowed at him, being bitterly reminded of becoming a pariah amongst his own soldiers. Diethard was once a respected head of television, now he's stuck in an office that's only slightly bigger than a walk-in closet. However, Valletta kept a calm persona in play. We have no intention of letting the situation end this way, the female soldier said. And we have the sneaking suspicion that you don't either. That's so. Well, who can say? Diethard replied. We have a lead that may help us find Zero. Jeremiah stated, getting Diethard's attention. You're familiar with Ashford Private Academy? Valletta asked. I want to investigate a male student attending there. I think he may be working with Zero, possibly those Autobots too. Diethard typed the words, Ashford Academy, but had a doubtful look on his face. Are you sure that's the best option? If this proves to be true, you may come face to face with the same metallic titans that defeated even Princess Cornelia. How did you know about that? Jeremiah questioned. You'd be surprised how quickly word spreads through the grapevine, even among soldiers supposedly loyal to the royal family. Diethard replied, causing the two to narrow their eyes. But what do I know? I'm no soldier. However, I do suppose it is fortunate that you yourselves seem to have your own titans to assist you, correct? Jeremiah scowled at the thought of the Decepticons, and even Valletta had a distrustful look in her eyes. There was something about those Decepticons that really rubbed them the wrong way. I assure you, we don't need their assistance in this matter. Valletta and I are going to be shipping out with the military soon for duty. Jeremiah got back to the original point. And we'll be stationed in the Narita Mountains. Therefore, Narita, isn't that where the Japan Liberation Front headquarters are rumored to be located? Diethard asked. Jeremiah put a suspicious eye on Diethard. You may be a bit too clever for your own good. Diethard carried an innocent-looking smile. You overestimate me. The Nemesis. Megatron stood with Soundwave on the bridge of his ship as the rotating image of the Earth presented itself to the pair. Makeshift may have failed in his mission, but we have indeed learned that the Autobots are based in the derelict Ark. Megatron began. This could narrow our search quite a bit, though even then it may take some time to locate them. Soundwave turned to Megatron as his visor shifted to show the image of Lelouch. You need not worry, Soundwave. Megatron replied. Lelouch has proven himself to be quite the strategist, but he is still green and has much to learn. He turned to Soundwave as the silent Decepticon looked towards his master. You wonder why I seem so interested in him. Soundwave nodded. Call it curiosity. I can see quite a bit of myself in that boy, and Optimus has no doubt seen it as well, which is likely why he has taken the boy under his wing, to try and steer him toward the path of good, as Optimus would likely have put it. However, I feel that maybe they both don't realize is that I have my own little bird to guide as well. The door opened to reveal Starscream, Thundercracker, and Skywarp as they entered the bridge. Lord Megatron, we have received word that Cornelia's forces are moving to Narita in a few short days. Thundercracker informed. Well, yes, I already suspected that location was home to the Japan Liberation Front. Starscream boasted. You weren't the least bit interested in them, not until you screwed up at that hotel jacking. Skywarp teased. Shut up, Starscream exclaimed, causing Skywarp to snicker. I'm already aware of this. Megatron said, getting the attention of the three Seekers. Soundwave is more the competent in surveillance. So, what is your point? Yes, well, Dreadwing has requested that he and the Camelot division be transported to Narita as well. Starscream said. I see. Megatron glanced back slightly. Very well, tell Dreadwing that his request has been granted. This surprised Starscream significantly. Forgive me, one true master, while I can understand sending Dreadwing, I fail to see the point in sending humans along with him. Especially that human. Starscream grumbled, out of all the humans that annoyed him, Suzaku Kururugi is by far the worst. I would also like to ask myself. Thundercracker put his 2 cents in. You even had Knockout provide some modifications to that Lancelot, so that it can better match the Autobots in a fight. Yeah, what's the deal with that? He's a human, Skywarp pointed out. If anything, he'd make a good, sacrificial lamb, as the humans say. I'm not sure you're using that phrase correctly. Thundercracker said bluntly. Megatron chuckled slightly, surprising them. I feel that perhaps, you are underestimating Kururugi. Soundwave attached his tentacles to the control console on the bridge as he played footage of the Lancelot's fight with Bumblebee in Shinjuku, as well as the encounters with the Autobots at the museum in ancient Greece. Most of the Britannian pilots that have battled the Autobots have all fallen, all save for him. His skills as a warrior are certainly nothing to scoff at. However, that's not the only reason. Master, Starscream asked. I actually see a bit of Optimus in him. Megatron revealed, surprising the trio of Seekers significantly. Well, to be more accurate, I see traits similar to Orion Pax in young Kururugi. If I recall, you and Pax were once friends before the war for Cybertron began. Thundercracker said. Indeed. Megatron confirmed. Ow, don't tell me you're getting all nostalgic on us. It doesn't suit you, Lord Megatron. Skywarp said. Of course not. The Lord of the Decepticons replied instantly. Despite their similarities, there is one clear-cut difference between Optimus and Kururugi. Optimus isn't as naive, not anymore. Once the war began, he tried many times to convince me to stop and change my ways and failed each time. However, he learned from his failures and even admitted as such during the Exodus. He knew he couldn't change my ways and even tried to snuff out my spark. Kururugi however has not yet learned that harsh lesson of reality. He joined the Britannian military because he hopes to change the entire empire from within. Starscream scoffed. Good luck with that. Britannia has been on a path of destruction for years, even before we had a hand in their ascension. They've even resorted to killing each other to get what they want. If they are more than willing to sacrifice their own kind, just how are they going to listen to an insignificant 11 about changing for the greater good? That Euphemia girl seems to be getting close to him, and she's a part of the royal family. Skywarp pointed out. Even so, I doubt the higher-ups are really gonna let anything happen. They'll probably just disown that girl like they did those two brats they sent here to Japan and even killed when they invaded. Thundercracker said. It doesn't matter. Megatron voiced as he grew a sinister smile. It doesn't matter whether Kururugi can change Britannia or not, his naivety makes him that easier to guide and mentor. Britannia may discard and brush him off for being Japanese, but I see him having greater potential, as the first human Decepticon. The Ark. A day later, a ground bridge portal opened in the bay as Ratchet, Cliffjumper, RC, and Fix-It, and nearly every Black Knight watched as Bulkhead, Bumblebee, Ironhide, and Wheeljack all drove out, each of them towing a massive trailer-like container behind their respective vehicle modes before the portal closed and the bots all transformed back. Well? Ratchet asked. Wheeljack smirked. See for yourself. He pressed a button on the trailer behind him, as did the other bots with him. The doors on the sides opened to reveal multiple black nightmares that caused each of the Black Knights to look in excited grins. Wow, it's amazing. These are Glasgow's, right? One Black Knight asked. Nope. Bulkhead shook his head. Beret, a Japanese modification. These can keep up with Sutherland's, at least according to the informants. As the new recruits in the BKs looked in awe at these new nightmares, Ironhide walked towards Bumblebee as the yellow Autobot meet the former Kazuki Resistance group, the original Black Knights. You guys think those are interesting? Check these two out. He smirked as Bumblebee opened his trailer to show two unique nightmares. One was a primarily blue nightmare with a Cyclops-like head, a single orange eye unit. It had a gun built onto its right arm with what appeared to be a large sheathed katana on its right side. Its left arm stuck out as being primarily silver with a red claw-like device at the end. The other nightmare was a vibrant red color that bore an appearance to a knight with a silver face and blue eyes. It had a gun built onto its left arm with its right arm being silver and a five-fingered clawed hand at the end. Whoa, look at these two. Rai voiced with wide eyes as he, Colin, Ogi, Inoue, Tamaki, Sugiyama, Yoshida, and Minami looked in awe and surprise. The red one's called the Gurren Mk2. Ironhide explained. The blue one is a prototype called the Gekka. They sure look pretty badass, don't they? Tamaki smirked. You wanna know the best part? Bumblebee voiced. They're completely made here in Japan. No Britannian resources whatsoever. You're serious? These Japanese? Ogi voiced. According to those Kyoto guys, yeah. Ironhide responded. No freaking way. Inoue looked with wide eyes and a smile. Oh, what's with their arms? Rai asked in regard to the silver arms on each of the Japanese nightmares. Those are radiant wave surgers. Fix-It explained as he rolled up to the group. At least according to the data we've obtained. It has the ability to generate extreme heat into anything it makes contact with before exploding from the inside out. That took them all by surprise before Tamaki smirked. Like I said, badass. Kyoto. Colin voiced in amazement. They recognize us, we have their approval. Not yet. The group turned towards the entrance to the bay to see Optimus and Zero enter the room just as Ironhide began to help Bulkhead and the other bots haul the Beret off towards the Nightmare Bay where Ratchet would begin to work on modifications. This isn't a sign of approval. Zero continued. It's a test. What do you mean a test? Ogi asked. Kyoto wishes to know if we are worthy of their assistance, so they are sending us some nightmares in the hopes of assessing our skills and potential, at least as far as the Black Knight pilots are capable of. Optimus explained. Shouldn't they already recognize us considering we got giant robots with us? Tamaki asked skeptically, referring to both the Autobot leader and Bumblebee who remained with the group. One would think. Zero granted. However, they're being cautious. And considering that we are facing not only an empire that comprises 1/3 of the whole planet, but a faction of giant alien robots that are on par with the Autobots, I'd say they have the right mind track. Agreed. Optimus nodded. In addition, while these new nightmares may indeed prove beneficial against Britannia, they may fall short in regard to the Decepticons. That took the Black Knights by surprise. Don't act so surprised, Zero said. You all remember Shinjuku. Standardized Sutherland rounds could barely even scratch Cybertronian armor. If we are to stand against the Decepticons, we need to improve our own firepower. And how do we do that? Colin asked. Our outer shell may be durable, but it is far from indestructible. Optimus explained. Our own skin is susceptible to extreme heat, for example. So wouldn't these radiant wave surgers do some damage then? Ogi asked. Maybe we can do something with that. They use a considerable amount of energy. Bumblebee answered. At least according to Kyoto. We'll need something a bit more reliable. Like what? Inoue asked. I've been thinking about that for some time now. Zero explained as he took out a small manual and opened it to show his subordinates. We'll use magnesium for our ammunition. It burns at a temperature of 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is hot enough to penetrate Cybertronian armor. Don't ask what it does to nightmares. Magnesium. Isn't that dangerous though? Rai asked. Forget dangerous, it should be downright impossible. Colin voiced. For humans. Fix-It pointed out. But not for us. Between Ratchet and myself, we could have solidified, superheated magnesium rounds loaded into all our nightmares in no time. Tamaki smirked. Huh, I like the way you think, little bot. Thank you. Fix-It smiled. Ogi turned towards the Autobot leader. Hey Optimus, you got a minute? Of course. Optimus nodded as he walked away with Ogi following behind. Colin, Rai, I'd like to speak with the two of you as well. Zero requested. Sure, no problem. Colin nodded as she and Rai followed their leader around the nightmare trailer, much to the confusion of the other Black Knights. Okay, when did they get so chummy? Tamaki questioned. Aw, don't tell me you're jealous, Tamaki. Inoue smirked along with the other Black Knights. What? No way. What would I be jealous of anyway? Well, Colin is our best pilot. Yoshida pointed out. That right kid is no pushover either. Where'd you guys find him again? Sugiyama asked Bumblebee. At Colin's school with amnesia. Other than that, he has no memory of anything before. Yeah, well, I think the kid's got what it takes. Tamaki voiced. He's one of us now, ain't he? All the other Black Knights present, and Bumblebee couldn't help but nod in agreement. Rai has more than proven himself worthy of bearing the title. At the same time, Zero was talking with Colin and Rai in private. How's his Ray's training coming along? Oh great, Colin voiced. He's about as good as I am. I don't know if I'm that good. Rai rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. Don't sell yourself so short, Rai. Colin playfully nudged his arm before turning to Zero. Honestly, he's a natural at this. It's almost like he's been a pilot his whole life. I don't know about that, but I don't really know anything. Rai looked down slightly. It's almost like my instincts take over. I don't think I just move on my own. Either way, it's all I need to hear. Zero said before handing Colin a key resembling a red feather with white tips at the end, and Rai a key of similar style with a dark blue color scheme. Colin, the Gurren MK2 is yours. And Rai, you'll be using the Gekka pre-production. Wait, us? Colin voiced in surprise as Rai looked shocked himself. But what about you? Yeah, you're our leader, shouldn't you use one of them? Rai asked as well. No, I'm a commander, I'll be using a Barai. Zero replied. But you two are warriors, it only makes sense to give our best pilots our best weapons. Besides that, you each have a reason to fight, correct? Colin and Rai exchanged glances as they each thought about that. Colin thought about her mother, her deceased brother, Ogi and all her friends in the Black Knights, as well as RC and Cliffjumper, and even her friends among the Ashford Student Council. Rai thought of Nunnally, Lelouch, Suzaku, and everyone else at Ashford as well as Bulkhead, and the other Black Knights he's befriended. They both had determined expressions as they nodded to their leader. We won't let you down. Colin stated. I know you won't. Zero nodded, before he received a communication from inside his mask. Zero, we need you on the bridge. Optimus contacted him. The way Optimus addressed Lelouch's Zero over the line made it clear that some Black Knights were meeting there as well, so he wasn't going to be taking off his mask yet. On my way, he responded before turning to his two ace pilots. Come with me. Zero, Colin, and Rai met with Optimus, Ogi, Ratchet, Ironhide, and Wheeljack on the bridge of the ship. On the main screen there was a projection of what appeared to be a large mountain. What's going on? Zero asked. We got some intel from a Britannian who wants to join up with us. Ogi answered. This got Lelouch's attention as both Colin and Rai looked to each other in surprise. From what we've gathered, it seems Cornelia has managed to locate the base of the Japan Liberation Front in the Narita Mountains. Ratchet explained. Could be a trap to draw us out. Ironhide voiced. Doubtful. Zero responded. Was this leak from a man named Diethard Reed? That took Ogi by surprise. Yes, how did you? I saw his application and I had Fix-It look into it. Zero explained. He's an important figure in the Britannian media, though according to his profile, he doesn't appear to have any connections to the military. Yeah, the guy's face doesn't really spell spy. Wheeljack pointed out. You can tell that by looking at someone's face. Rai asked the wrecker. When you've been in war as long as us, you learn how to spot snitches. Wheeljack pointed out. So, what exactly are we going to do? Colin asked. This information is something that we cannot ignore. Optimus explained. The Japan Liberation Front is the largest resistance group in this country with a great deal of support behind it, including Kyoto. If it falls, then all other resistance in Japan will as well. Not if we have anything to say about it. Zero said. Because we'll be rescuing the JLF. That caught everyone's attention. Rescue the JLF. Colin repeated in shock. You sure you want to do that? After that mess at the hotel jacking? Ironhide reminded. Optimus himself said the JLF is the biggest resistance group in this nation, and if we are able to save them, we may not only gain their support, but the support of virtually every other resistance in Japan. We'd have the whole nation on our side. Ogi exclaimed in realization. Exactly. Zero nodded. While this result would indeed be beneficial, we are still missing one crucial piece of information. Ratchet pointed out. How? As in how we are going to pull this off. Ratchet's got a point. Ironhide assumed. If this is Japan's biggest resistance, you can bet Cornelia is going to bring everything she has to completely destroy them. In addition, there is still the strong possibility of the Decepticons taking part in this battle as well. Optimus added. While everyone else was trying to think of a plan, as even Zero knew this wouldn't be easy, Wheeljack took a look at the three-dimensional hologram of the mountain on the screen and found something near its summit. Hey, what's that? He pointed to a spot at the top that appeared to be hollow. Water, from an underground reserve at the top of the mountain. Ratchet answered. Does it leak off anywhere? Wheeljack asked. No, why? Ratchet replied. Wheeljack smirked as an idea came to mind. A situation like this calls for an old wrecker trick. That got everyone's attention. Would you care to elaborate, Wheeljack? Optimus asked. All that water up there has gotta be pressurized, right? Wheeljack began to explain. There's no leak, it doesn't flow anywhere. So, all we gotta do is squeeze it a bit more and add to that pressure. We keep squeezing until it pops. Kaboom. That took everyone by surprise, even Optimus looked stunned for a moment. Wait, are you saying we should blow up the mountain? Rai almost screamed. No, not the whole mountain. Wheeljack toned down. I mean just the top. We cause enough of an explosion to create a landslide, it should take out more than half the enemy before they even realize what's happening. Wreckers and I tried that same trick back on Cybertron before, took out 5 whole battalions of cons. A landslide. Zero mused. You know, that might actually be brilliant, Wheeljack. I can see where the Wreckers got their reputation. He congratulated, causing the aforementioned Wrecker to smirk. But what about the Japan Liberation Front? Ogi asked. Or what about the city in Narita down below? Colin also asked. I thought we don't endanger civilians. And we won't. Optimus voiced. We can send a message to the JLF and inform them to keep themselves inside. Their base appears to be built deep enough in the mountains that the landslide should have minimal effect on them. We can also hack into the local police and military base and see to it all civilian occupied areas are evacuated before the battle starts. You're already on board with this, Optimus? Ironhide asked. You're not one to indulge in massive destruction. Perhaps, however, even with all the support our alliance has gained, we are still significantly outnumbered. Optimus replied. We must be willing to adapt, and that goes for you as well, Wheeljack. He turned to the Wrecker. While I acknowledge your skills as a warrior and your experience, we must take care to avoid civilian casualties. Yeah, got it. Wheeljack gave a finger salute. He may be a bit insubordinate and reckless, but he wasn't about to endanger helpless beings. That's what the Decepticons would do. Alright, so it looks like we have a plan. Zero explained. We need to start modifying our nightmares immediately. Colin, Rai, familiarize yourselves with your new weapons. The two nodded to his order. We'll use the ground bridge to teleport ourselves to Wheeljack's intended spot just before the battle begins. I'll inform our plan the others. Rai smirked. Well, looks like we're going hiking this weekend. Though his attempt at humor didn't do well to levy the tense situation that most of them were experiencing, particularly Ogi, who still looked nervous as he glanced towards Optimus. The next morning, Ashford Clubhouse. Nunnally sat up in her bed just as Sayoko walked into the room with a change of clothes. Sayoko, we won't be needing any breakfast for Lelouch and Rai this morning. Oh, are they going out somewhere? The maid asked. Lelouch said that he and Rai were leaving on a 3-day trip starting today. Nunnally answered. Sayoko smiled. Those two seem to be spending quite a lot of time together. Let's hope he doesn't make you jealous. Nunnally laughed. I'm not jealous at all. I'm glad Lelouch is making so many friends. Maybe he's going somewhere to help Rai get some of his memories back. Maybe. Sayoko nodded as she helped Nunnally to get dressed. Narita. During the previous nights, RC, Bumblebee, and Cliffjumper had been using the ground bridge to arrive in the Narita Mountains and scout the area to familiarize themselves with the terrain. This particular trio of Autobots excelled when it came to scouting and recon. They were able to identify all the outposts under the JLF command and even the main entrance to their hideout. They've even scouted the spot that Wheeljack wanted to dig so they could get closer to the groundwater underneath the summit of the mountain. In the time span of 2 days, the Autobots had a complete layout of the environment and had avoided any and all detection by the Japan Liberation Front. In addition, the night before, Ratchet was able to hack into the military database and deliver an order that made it look as though Cornelia had ordered the city of Narita to be evacuated, which had already been done. Now it was the day of the battle, and it would seem that everything was going according to plan so far. 2 JLF soldiers sat in a small lodge close towards the summit of the mountain. Sector 5, nothing to report. One soldier gave the timely report to the headquarters. Right, the next scheduled report will be in 2 hours. Of course, there's nothing to report. The second soldier said as the pair resumed their game of Gomoku. This area is controlled by the Japan Liberation Front. No one is just gonna stroll in. The front door was suddenly opened as Zero himself just walked into the lodge with Bumblebee and Zero's own commander-type Barai right outside. The soldiers immediately stood up with their guns. Zero. Relax, I only came to talk. He took off his mask just as he activated his Geass. I want you to ignore any unusual activity during your watch. The sigil flew into both their eyes and they immediately went back to their game. Sure, no problem. Come on, it's your turn. What's the rush? We're just on regular duty, you know. Lelouch then turned around to Bumblebee and nodded. The yellow Autobot then made contact with the rest of the team. Bumblebee to base. The outpost is secure, move in now. Understood. Optimus relayed back. At the very summit of the mountain, a large ground bridge portal opened up as the vehicle modes of Optimus, Ironhide, Bulkhead, RC, Cliffjumper, and Wheeljack all drove out along with multiple Beret and even some leftover Black Sutherlands, all owned by the Black Knights, including the Gurren Mk2 and Gekka pre-production, both being piloted by Colin and Rai respectively. All the Nightmares had undergone some modifications, including the newer ones they acquired from Kyoto. Their standardized ammunition had all been replaced with weaponized magnesium that would superheat once it was shot and could make short work out of any enemy, Nightmare or Decepticon. All the Nightmares in addition had been given a silver metallic emblem etched into the shoulder areas. The emblem was that of the Autobot Black Knight Alliance. The blue Geass Radiant Wave Surger had also been modified and looked identical to the one the Gurren currently had with long silver claws as opposed to a prong. Optimus and Ironhide's respective vehicle modes both had trailers hitched on the back, and once the ground bridge portal closed, several Black Knights, including Inoue, all stepped out of the Autobots' vehicle modes before the Autobots themselves transformed. "Alright, this is a good spot," Wheeljack pointed out. "Then let's start digging," Cliffjumper said. "Not much time till little Cornelia shows up." "You heard em, let's move soldiers." Ironhide took command as the trailers all opened to reveal large excavators, which several Autobots and a few Nightmares took as they began to dig. "I will send a message to the Japan Liberation Front," Optimus informed everyone as they got to work. "Lelouch, I understand your motives, and your heart is in the right place. I just hope that you have your priorities straight as well." Lelouch sat in the lounge with the two JLF soldiers, still under the effect of his Geass, playing their game and ignoring him as Lelouch took one last glimpse over the map of the entire mountain area. "The day I've waited for has finally come, Cornelia," he said aloud before he heard a tap on the window and looked to see Bumblebee pointing behind him to reveal CC was also there, much to Lelouch's surprise. "JLF Headquarters. General Katace, sir." One soldier alerted the leader of the Japan Liberation Front. "What is it?" We're receiving a message. It appears to be from those Autobots." "What?" Katace exclaimed in surprise, along with every other JLF soldier in the room. The soldier that alerted Katace pressed a few commands on his console and the message began to play. "Attention soldiers of the Japan Liberation Front, my name is Optimus Prime, leader of the Autobots. We have reason to believe that your base will soon come under attack by the Britannian military led personally by Princess Cornelia. However, you will not face them alone. The Autobots, along with the Black Knights, will assist you in repelling them. However, once the attack begins, I urge you to keep your forces inside your base. If you have any automated defenses, then use those, but refrain from using any soldiers, even your Nightmares. Once we begin our counterattack, then you may either choose to join us in the battle or use the time to evacuate. The choice is yours." The message cut off as the soldiers looked to General Katace for a reply as his face was mixed with shock, surprise, and concern. He wasn't quite sure how to respond to this. Meanwhile, near the base of the mountain, Cornelia's own mobile base was making its way through the evacuated city of Narita. Cornelia herself sat on her throne as her soldiers, including Guilford, Darlton, and even the most elite Glaston Knights were all present. These elite Glaston Knights were none other than Darlton's adoptive sons, Alfred, Bart, Claudio, David, and Edgar, all of whom looked as though they were in their early 20s. Even Euphemia was present as well. "We're certain that the Japan Liberation Front's headquarters are in this area," Darlton informed. "We've already split 4 battalions into 7 units and hidden them within the vicinity. We've only to wait for the Viceroy's signal, then we'll surround them in one fell swoop and wipe them out." "Sorry Dad, but this seems a bit overkill." Alfred spoke to his adoptive father. "I mean, all of us against those measly 11s. Don't underestimate them, Alfred, the same goes for the rest of you." Darlton told his sons. "There's a reason they're the largest terrorist group in Area 11. Still, I'm a little surprised you asked us to help you out," David said. "That wasn't my decision, it was the Viceroy's." Darlton turned to Cornelia. "Viceroy, if I may." Claudio spoke in a polite tone. "Why did you ask for all of us to assist you? I don't recall you've ever requested for assistance before. Personally, I'm honored to get a chance to fight alongside you, Princess Cornelia," Edgar pointed out. "Save the pleasantries." Cornelia raised her hand. "I asked you here because you're the best of the Glaston Knights. While the Japan Liberation Front is indeed a problem, I feel that your assistance will be best needed with our other problem." "Viceroy, are you by any chance referring to Zero and the Autobots?" Euphemia asked out of curiosity. "Indeed." Cornelia nodded. "Oh, now you're talking." Alfred smirked. "A chance to square off against those robots, sounds like fun." "Viceroy, can you be certain the Autobots and Zero will indeed show up?" Guilford asked. "I have little reason to doubt," Cornelia answered. "They do have a habit of showing up unexpectedly. But if they do arrive, this mountain will be their grave. You are to kill every single Autobot in your sight, that is an order." "Yes, Your Majesty." All 7 Glaston knights saluted their princess. However, Cornelia added, "If you spot the Autobot leader, Optimus Prime, do not engage him." They looked in surprise to see a dark look in Cornelia's eyes. "I will kill him myself." Ashford Academy. What? Millie exclaimed in surprise as she sat on a table in front of Nina, who was reading a magazine article on Euphemia. "You want to meet her? Are you kidding? Do you know who you're talking about? She's a princess and you're just a citizen. What do you have in common aside from that hotel jacking?" "Yes, but, as for Princess Euphemia," Nina stuttered. "I never got a chance to thank her for helping me." Millie's look softened somewhat, but she still had a doubtful expression on her face. There was a time when my family name had the influence to arrange that. However, that time was long gone. So tell me, Nina, do you know what the social status is on a principal's granddaughter?" Not a very high one." Nina guessed. "Correct, not very." Millie confirmed. "Narita. CC. Lelouch got her attention as he and Bumblebee walked toward the mysterious woman. "What are you doing here?" "I said I'd protect you, didn't I?" That's kinda my job," Bumblebee pointed out. "How are you supposed to protect him from nightmares and Decepticons?" CC apparently chose to ignore that question. "I've been wondering something, Lelouch." "Why are you Lelouch?" "You got any idea what she's talking about?" Bumblebee asked Lelouch. "No clue. You changed your family surname to Lamperouge, but you kept Lelouch, the name that was given to you at birth." CC said. "How sentimental, you can't let go of the past." Lelouch glared slightly as even Bumblebee had a questionable look. "You're not exactly one to talk. We got no idea who you are, and if you wanna talk about names, CC isn't exactly normal. Sounds like a name of a machine, not even a Cybertronian at that." CC shot a look towards the Autobot. "Tell me something, Bumblebee, do you know why snow is white?" The scout didn't know how to answer that question. Snow is white, because it's forgotten what color it's supposed to be. Bumblebee was about to give a response when Ironhide contacted him. "Bumblebee, we need you and Zero here now. We're just about ready to start. On our way." Bumblebee then transformed. "Lelouch, it's time." The revolutionary nodded as he put on his mask and made his way over to his Barai. He turned back to CC. "You coming or what?" "I think I'll stay here and just watch the show," CC said before turning around to look down the landscape. Zero shook his head in exhaustion as he climbed into his Barai and followed Bumblebee towards the summit of the mountain. The Nemesis. Soundwave was easily able to hack into Cornelia's military communications channel and had broadcasted everything to the Decepticons gathered together on the bridge as a 3-dimensional hologram of the Narita mountain was shown on the main screen, with several lights indicating the signals of all Cornelia's nightmares. The Decepticons gathered included Megatron himself, along with Starscream, Thundercracker, Skywarp, Knockout, and Breakdown. "All units are in position." "Understood." Cornelia responded. "Euphemia will provide logistical support from G1 as planned. Have her command the medical group." "Yes, Your Highness." "What's with everyone waiting?" Breakdown questioned. "Let's just start smashing some engine blocks already." "Yeah, what he said." Skywarp agreed. "Patience, we wait." Megatron ordered his subordinates. "For what, Lord Megatron?" Starscream questioned. "If you are suspicious of the Autobots being there, then send in our forces to flatten the mountain. We'll destroy everything in our path." Without knowing the enemy's strategy or how to counter it, Megatron turned to his second-in-command. "Such a tactic is a fool's errand." A fool's errand is the perfect way to describe virtually all of Starscream's plans. Knockout mocked, causing Breakdown and Skywarp to smirk while Starscream himself grumbled in annoyance. "Master, is Dreadwing still with the Lancelot?" Thundercracker asked. "Indeed." Megatron confirmed as Soundwave zoomed on a single signal to indicate the Lancelot's position as well as Dreadwing's life signal right next to it. "Why not send them in with Cornelia's forces?" Thundercracker asked once more. "I wouldn't want to waste such talent by sending them in blindly," Megatron informed. Knockout smirked. "Oh, I get it. Cornelia and her pals are all expendable, send them in first and we'll move in to finish them off once the enemy plays their hand." "That is indeed correct," Megatron concluded with a sinister sneer. "After all, in chess, the pawns go first." Narita, Summit. The excavators have all dug very deep into the ground. With the aid of the Autobots, they were just slightly over the water pocket. All that remained was plugging in the electrodes that the Gurren's radiant wave surger would use and waiting for the right moment. All the Autobots and Black Knights stood at the ready, just waiting for the right signal. But the wait was killer, one could almost cut through the tension with a knife. Rai looked among the most nervous as he sat in his Geass cockpit, gripping the controls hard as sweat poured down his face. "You nervous, kid?" Wheeljack asked as he and Bulkhead walked up. "A little," Rai breathed. "First big battle, I was kind of excited at first, but now that I'm here." "Hey, it's cool," Bulkhead assured. "That's how it always is. But what do you got to be nervous about? I've seen ya, you can hold your own in a fight. Not to mention this Gekka thing you got seems pretty strong too." Wheeljack commented. "Personally, I'm actually looking forward to seeing ya in action. If what Bulkhead's told me about you is any indication, you're a wrecker in the making." That took Rai by surprise. You think I'm wrecker material? Takes one to know one." Wheeljack smirked. "And don't worry, we got your back," Bulkhead assured. "You're not fighting alone." Rai couldn't help but smile at this. These Autobots told him he had the potential to be one of the best and would be fighting by his side the entire time. "Thanks guys." Meanwhile, RC and Cliffjumper made their way towards Colin as she did one last skim through the manual in the Gurren. "So, you all set and ready, Colin?" Cliffjumper asked the girl. "Yeah, I think so," Colin confirmed. "I got a feel for the controls, and I've read every inch of this manual. I think I'm ready." "You sure look ready too," Cliffjumper commented. "I mean this thing looks really cool, especially the color." He smirked, referring to his own paint job and the Gurren's, causing Colin to chuckle while RC shook her head with an amused smirk. "When the fighting starts, stick with us," RC told the girl. "I can handle myself, RC." Colin replied. "I know," RC said. "But better to work as a team, don't hog all the fun for yourself. Partner." She offered her fist towards the cockpit for a fist bump, which Cliffjumper also offered. Colin smiled as she exchanged a fist bump with them both. Ogi saw and heard the exchanges with Rai, Bulkhead, Wheeljack, as well as Colin, RC, and Cliffjumper and smiled slightly as he found himself walking towards Ironhide as he oversaw final preparations. "Looks like everyone's ready," he said to the veteran Autobot. "Then why do you look so nervous?" Ironhide asked, taking Ogi by surprise. "That obvious, huh?" He looked away slightly. "Yeah, but that's alright," Ironhide said as Ogi looked towards him. "It's okay to be scared, it shows you're human. But I'm not human so I can't really say anything there." He attempted to joke slightly, which caused Ogi to smile. "You ever been scared before?" "Of course, many times," Ironhide responded. "But you gotta push past that fear, otherwise it'll rule you for the rest of your life." Ogi looked down. "I don't know if I can. I mean, no offense, but you guys are just so big and strong. Zero's pretty much the ultimate strategist from what we've seen so far, even Colin and Rai are better pilots than I am. Honestly, I'm not sure if I'm really good for anything." Ironhide sighed. "You remember Naoto, right? Your best friend. The one who died helping the weak." "Of course, I do," Ogi quickly said. "Right after that, you took up arms and actually made a stand against Britannia." Ironhide continued. "You could have gone the easy route to become an honorary Britannia, but you instead choose to fight. That alone speaks volumes, and you don't need to be an expert strategist or a natural pilot for that. Just being able to stand up alone means you are strong." Ogi looked with a wide-eyed expression of awe at Ironhide as he continued. "If we felt you didn't cut it, you wouldn't be in the Black Knights. But you are, meaning, we know you can hold your own." The veteran Autobot told him. "So prove us right." That was all Ogi needed to hear. The fact that this veteran Autobot said that he knew Ogi could make the cut was enough to motivate him to continue fighting. "I won't let you down." Meanwhile, Zero himself stood on top of the tallest point in the area, almost half the height of Optimus Prime as he stood alongside Bumblebee. "All preparations are complete," he spoke to the Autobot leader. "Now all we need to do is wait." "Zero, you indeed have taken the necessary steps," Optimus told him. "However, you must also be willing to adapt should things go wrong." "I can't really imagine if things would go wrong," Zero said. "Our opponent is Cornelia, though she is undoubtedly one of the best warriors Britannia has to offer, she's no strategist. If this works, we'll cut down more than half her forces. Yeah, Cornelia, but what about the Decepticons? Bumblebee questioned. I trust you are more than capable of handling them. Zero responded. Optimus gave something of a sigh. Zero, no one is questioning your talent when it comes to strategy. However, no matter how thorough your plans may be or what contingencies you have planned, there are still some factors that remain outside your control. There is still a possibility that things can go wrong, and you must be willing to adapt when that happens. Yeah, no offense Lelouch, but you don't have the best track record when it comes to that, Bumblebee pointed out. Lelouch's own eyes narrowed slightly, but a part of him knew that they made a valid point. More than once, he allowed his ego to get in the way and something he didn't foresee derailed his whole strategy, like when Suzaku arrived in the Lancelot in Shinjuku, or when he allowed himself to almost be captured by Cornelia's forces. It is easy to believe you are in control if you view this as a chess game. Optimus continued. You control all the pieces on your side of the board, and you can see where your opponent's pieces are positioned. However, in this scenario, you are not the chess player, but rather one of the pieces. Every one of us has a role to play here, including you. I don't feel I need to remind you that this is not a game. I'm aware. Zero nodded. So, keep your eyes focused on the battle. Bumblebee advised. We won't abandon you, I can promise you that. But you have to be willing to keep an open mind and be flexible. Don't panic and don't let your ego get the better of you. Keep a cool head and you should be fine. Lelouch smiled slightly underneath his mask. Thank you for your advice. Viceroy, it's time. Darlton communicated as Cornelia's fingers practically itched. She was more than ready to begin. Right, commence operation. She smirked almost evilly as all 7 units around the mountain began their advance. Dozens upon dozens of nightmares all launched from Cornelia's mobile base, from several cargo trains around the area, throughout the evacuated city, and even those that were dropped from airplanes above and into the forests below. You the Japan Liberation Front, you who time has left behind, Cornelia sneered. You who have forgotten basic human decency, you and your dream of a bygone golden age shall fall and rot to nothingness. JLF headquarters. Alarms blared from all over the control room as they saw multiple enemy signals completely encircle them from the radar screen. We're under enemy attack, Geass exclaimed. Yes sir. The Britannian forces have completely encircled the Narita Mountains. We calculate over 100 units. Just like the Autobots told us, Geass muttered to himself. Summit of Narita. So, it begins. Optimus said as all the Autobots and Black Knights saw the aircraft circling the area. Ratchet, have any Decepticons arrived yet? Not yet Optimus. Ratchet responded back from the Ark. All enemy signals are Britannian units, however, I estimate over 100 individual units in total. Understood. Optimus responded. Wheeljack gave an impressive whistle. This Cornelia sure doesn't play around, does she? Hey, more fun for us, right? Cliffjumper smirked. Huh, you gotta be freaking kidding me. Tamaki exclaimed. You see how many of those guys are down there? There's no way we can fight them off. You all know the plan. Ironhide reminded. We don't have to fight them all. Just wait and we'll be fine. Indeed, our only chance at victory here is to fight. Zero announced to everyone present. Now you're talking my language. Bulkhead slammed his fists together, more than ready for a brawl. Many Black Knights present however didn't seem the least bit enthusiastic, most even seem rather frightened. We're talking about Cornelia here. You expect us to fight 100 of these guys head on and win? Tamaki questioned. In case you all forgotten, we've beaten Cornelia before. RC reminded. Optimus could beat her alone in single combat, she's not invincible. This resulted in several mumbles of agreement among many Black Knights. It's not just you guys fighting here. Cliffjumper also said. We're fighting with you, so you're not doing this alone. The keyword being, with. Ironhide pointed out. We can't fight all your battles for you. You want Japan to be able to stand on its own 2 feet, then you need to fight on your own without becoming too reliant on us. You all knew something like this was going to happen the minute you signed on with us. RC reminded. Are you willing to back out now? Easy for you all to say, you guys are bulletproof. We're not, Tamaki exclaimed. The price could be our lives. That's enough. All eyes were set on Ogi of all people as he stood in front of Zero and Optimus, the former looking a bit surprised underneath his mask as well. "Look, you guys are scared, heck I'm scared too," Ogi began. "But, look at everything the Autobots and Zero have all done for us. They gave us a chance to fight back, a chance to actually stand up against Britannia. If it weren't for them, we'd all probably be 6 feet under back in Shinjuku right now." He glanced back towards Zero and Optimus with a slight smile, and even towards Ironhide who nodded slightly. "If you guys wanna leave, that's fine. I won't hold it against you, but I'm staying. I'm going to stay and fight for the freedom of Japan." "Damn right, I'm staying too," Colin voiced as she stood up in the Gurren's cockpit. "I'm just as much involved in all of this as they are. No way am I backing out now. That goes double for me." Rai also stood up from the Geass's cockpit. "Britannia's been doing what they want and getting away with it for far too long. Well, it's time that we start pushing back." All the Black Knights presented looked absolutely stunned at how Ogi, Colin, and Rai were willing to stand up and fight alongside the Autobots and Zero, despite the overwhelming odds. All the Autobots, Bumblebee, RC, Bulkhead, Cliffjumper, Wheeljack, and Ironhide all walked and stood alongside Optimus, with Colin and Rai right alongside them, and even Ogi and Zero right below. "Ever since you've joined us, you knew something like this would be coming," Zero stated. "You knew that we'd be facing the full force of Britannia and it would not be an easy fight. However, if you wish to leave, then you may." Optimus nodded. "We can have a ground bridge open right now so that you may leave without engaging in battle. However, if you choose to stay, then know that you are not facing this enemy alone. We will stand by you every step of the way." The Black Knights, even those from the original Kazuki resistance group, all exchanged glances at this. Despite being literal aliens from another world, the Autobots stood firm in their word that they would not abandon them and fight their common enemy together. "The choice is yours," Zero stated. "Either leave and live a life of complacency, or stay and fight to protect not only this nation, but the entire planet." JLF headquarters were completely surrounded, and all our underground reserve forces were captured all at once. "General Geass, we've received a message from Cornelia's forces demanding our surrender." "Imbecile," Geass himself exclaimed. "If we fall here, then we've lost and the whole resistance movement falls with us. Then General, do we engage the enemy in battle? Or do we dig in?" One soldier asked. "What about Toto? Where is he?" Geass asked. "He's gone to Kyoto, to get the custom beret. The 4 holy swords are traveling with him too. If they're on schedule, they should be returning soon, but Toto won't make it in time," Geass said with a feeling of dread building up inside him. "So, what do we do, sir?" Geass was silent for a moment. He thought about the message he received from Optimus. He had seen the Autobots work firsthand as they made short work of the purist faction, eliminated the treasonous Kusakabe without killing a single civilian, and even rumors spread of the Autobot leader defeating Cornelia. There was no denying that the Autobots and their Black Knight allies have gotten results, and if they were actually here to help. "Ready all the automated turrets and traps," Geass ordered. "But don't send out any of our soldiers, not even the beret." That took his subordinates by surprise. "Sir, you heard me. Dig in for now," Geass exclaimed. "Yes, sir." As the soldiers got to work to ready their automated defenses, Geass clenched his fists. He was talking a big gamble right here, but if the Autobots and Zero could really provide their help, then they might just have a chance at survival. G1 base. "We believe that the enemy's main base is located in the mountains here," one officer reported to Euphemia on a digital map. "But we haven't pinpointed it yet. However, until we obtain a list of their collaborators, we can't burn down everything with our aerial bombing. The enemy will try to engage our encirclement and break through at some point," another officer reported. "From there, we will be able to ascertain where their base is. Our forces are divided into 3 main fronts," the first officer reported. "The units led by General Dalton here, along with Alfred and David, General Alex with Claudio and Bart here, and Viceroy Cornelia with Guilford and Edgar here. As for our flanking forces..." The screen was suddenly cut off by static and electric interference, surprising Euphemia. "It's enemy ECM," one officer revealed. Along one side of the mountain, Darlton, Alfred, and David led a unit of Gloucester Nightmares up the slopes. The enemy force should be coming out any time now. Darlton told his men. We're switching to ECCM mode. Link up on channel Alpha-4. Everyone be on the lookout for, oh, what were those things called again? David questioned. Beret, basically, faux Glasgows. Alfred said in a mocking sort of tone. Either way, watch out for them. Darlton told his men and sons. Yes, my lord. All the soldiers replied in unison. Meanwhile, Cornelia led her group up another area as several trees parted ways to reveal several large turrets coming out of the ground. How clever, they've turned this whole mountain into a fortress. Cornelia mused. Your Highness, please fall back. Guilford advised. Guilford, don't treat me as though I'm another one of your women. Cornelia said as she sped her nightmare right into the turrets as they opened fire. Princess Cornelia, Guilford exclaimed, but his worry was unfounded as the princess's Gloucester swiftly avoided all the gunfire. She swiped her lance forward to slice down one turret before impaling the second and swerving it around to cut through the third and final one in the area. Right, well then I'll cover you from the rear. Guilford said, being reminded of just how strong she really was. Trying to get in good with the Princess Edgar teased to Guilford over a private line so that Cornelia couldn't hear. Can't blame you, she is pretty hot. That is the second princess of Britannia you are speaking of. Guilford exclaimed with his cheeks turning slightly pink. Besides, I'm her knight, I'm supposed to protect her. It's nothing like what you are suggesting. Whatever you say. Edgar teased once more. As Cornelia used her nightmares/harkens to dispatch another turret, she received a communication from General Alex. Viceroy, we have engaged the enemy. However, all resistance appears to be automated. There are no nightmares so far. Cornelia looked momentarily surprised as Darlton reported in the same thing. It is the same over here, Viceroy. We've only encountered unmanned turrets so far. They're only using automated. Cornelia wondered aloud. Are these fools too cowardly to even face me? She announced through her nightmares speakers as her Gloucester stood proudly with an air of arrogance surrounding her and her men. Well, Cornelia is here. Is there no one who will challenge me? Narita Summit. Well, what is your choice? Zero asked the Black Knights once more as he, Optimus, Bumblebee, Ogie, RC, Cliffjumper, Colin, Ironhide, Bulkhead, Rye, and Wheeljack all stood together. Run or fight? No one responded for a minute, until Inoue stepped up. She briefly made eye contact with Ogie and Colin before speaking. It's thanks to all of you that we're even here. You've given us no reason to doubt you. So, I'm staying. Several other Black Knights followed suit as well. Yeah, I'm staying too. So am I. Even Tamaki seemed to be a bit on board, although somewhat reluctantly. Alright, do what you guys want. Thanks. Glad to know you're all on board. Cliffjumper smiled as the other Autobots relaxed and went to make one final check to see if everything was ready. Optimus contacted the Ark once more. Ratchet, what is the situation? The Ark, the bridge. The Britannian forces are on the attack. Ratchet reported as he and Fixit watched the signals representing Britannian nightmares advance up the mountain. They appear to be engaging in combat, but we haven't seen any movement from the JLF headquarters. They don't seem to be sending out their soldiers. It would seem that they have headed our warning. Optimus responded. Any Decepticon signals? Not yet, but that is bound to change. Ratchet informed. Fixit received a communication from Zero on a private line. Fixit, any sign of that white nightmare? The one that Suzaku pilots? Nothing yet. Fixit reported. But we haven't been able to isolate any unique id signal from that particular nightmare yet, so it could be here, but it hasn't engaged yet. Alright, let us know immediately if you see it. Zero informed. As Suzaku sat inside the cockpit of the Lancelot, he glanced back to see Lloyd and Cecile talking about the modifications made to the Lancelot by Knockout recently. There wasn't any significant change made to the Nightmare yet, but the Red Decepticon did promise that it would be much more maneuverable. However, it didn't make him any less nervous than not knowing what was going on. Suzaku got word from Cecile that the attack had begun, but their unit hadn't been called in yet. Suzaku opened a link on his communications device to speak to the Decepticon standing outside the transport. Dreadwing, are you there? I am here. Dreadwing responded from outside as he stood dutifully, looking up the mountain. Can you tell me what's going on with the battle? Dreadwing's optics zoomed in around the area where he could see multiple explosions. It was pretty far and high, so he couldn't make out any details, but he had a basic idea. It would seem that Cornelia's forces have the enemy overwhelmed. Dreadwing informed. Unless something extraordinary happens, this battle may be over soon. Oh, I see. The Decepticon noticed the tone in the youth's voice. You sound disappointed. Well, it's just, I want to be able to help more. Suzaku said honestly. I can understand why they don't allow numbers to pilot their nightmares, but that is a Britannian policy. You may not need to concern yourself with that much longer. Dreadwing informed. What do you mean? Suzaku asked. As the ASEEC is an irregular unit, it doesn't fall under the normal Britannian military chain of command. Dreadwing explained. However, that also means it is available to be taken under Decepticon command. For this particular battle, we are actually under the command of Lord Megatron. Suzaku's eyes widened. Megatron is in charge, he voiced in surprise. Indeed, Dreadwing confirmed. He has recognized your talent and skill. If you perform well, I can guarantee he'll place you in positions that will enable you to fight, as opposed to remaining solely on the sidelines. Suzaku however didn't respond, as this didn't really feel like good news. Is that not what you wanted? Well, not exactly. Suzaku began. It's just, can I tell you something personal, Dreadwing? Of course. Dreadwing responded with a sincere tone, indicating he'd be willing to listen. I joined the Britannian military, because I hope I can change the Empire from within. Suzaku said. But, if I'm in the Decepticon ranks, I don't know if I'll be able to. I can understand your hesitance in this situation. Dreadwing began. However, you must be willing to understand that the current Britannian system is rather discriminatory towards the so-called 11s, despite your skills. So it seems unlikely they would put you in a position that will enable you to accomplish your goals. But Suzaku stuttered, but Dreadwing wasn't finished. However, the Decepticons bear no such discriminatory thoughts. And the more we work alongside Britannia, the more they are willing to listen to us. Therefore, if you are placed in a higher position of power among our ranks, the more of an effect you will have on our associates in Britannia. Suzaku did see some logic in Dreadwing's way of thinking. Young Suzaku, I promise, your goals will not go unnoticed by my master. We will provide you with the means of changing the Britannian Empire, far quicker than what would be if you simply follow their system. Suzaku thought about this for a moment. If the Decepticons could help him in changing this country, then maybe they could also help him make a better world for Lelouch Nunnally, where they don't have to live in hiding anymore. Maybe, they really can help. Narita City. The entire populated area had been completely evacuated. All homes and businesses were empty and there didn't appear to be a single civilian in sight. However, that didn't mean that no human was still in the city. For in a secret underground laboratory several men in lab coats were discussing the situation. Why did they choose this place? If the military should find the experimental data on Code R, then it's all over. Oh my, being inside the terrorists' area, we thought it would be difficult for them to discover us. This was all General Bartley's decision, so there is no use in complaining about it. As these three scientists continued to speak, there was a fourth man, a middle-aged Britannian man with brown hair, over in the next room, contemplating the situation. There was no way he and his cohorts could escape. If they made a run for it now, the military would spot them for sure. So the best thing to do was bunker down in this underground bunker and hope they aren't found. The man took out a locket in his lab coat and opened it to glance at a picture of his wife and his daughter. He had a remorseful look on his face. Surely, I hope you can forgive me. Nemesis. Megatron watched in amusement as they saw Cornelia's forces sweep through all defenses the JLF had up against them. It would seem like the entire base would be overrun in moments. So, wonder what's taking the Autobots so long. Knockout wondered aloud. Maybe they didn't show. Thundercracker voiced. They could just not be here after all. Yeah, it's not like they and the JLF are pals, given that mess that Starscream set up back at Lake Kawaguchi. Skywarp mocked. Shut up, Starscream exclaimed, not wanting to be reminded of that failure. Not like the bots to run from a fight, though. Breakdown put his 2 cents in. They could just be waiting. For what exactly? Starscream questioned. Even if they are Britannian, our pawns outnumber the Autobots 100 to 1. Even if they have those measly Black Knights to assist, they're only human. Viceroy Cornelia, we appear to have found the entrance to the enemy base. Darlton's message was intercepted by Soundwave, as was the response. Copy, we'll be securing our position here. Cornelia responded. Are you certain, Viceroy? Guilford asked. I don't need to steal achievements from my subordinates. Cornelia responded. This received amused responses from the eavesdropping Decepticons. Send the reserve forces to back up Darlton. Looks like he'll be getting another medal. Well, isn't that just generous? Knockout mocked. Megatron didn't respond, but still found it amusing. This was a simple, yet effective strategy. One that was easy to read, however. If Optimus and Zero really were present here, then they are likely waiting for an ideal opportunity to strike. But what was this opportunity? All he could do was wait to find out. However, at the bottom of the mountain, Jeremiah, Valletta, and what was left of the Pureblood faction appeared to be at the very rear of all the action. And Jeremiah wasn't happy about it one bit. I thought the reserve units were supposed to be assigned to General Dalton. Jeremiah slammed his fist onto his Sutherland in frustration. That's right, they were. Valletta said. But our line has to secure the rear line of Princess Cornelia. You mean this is the rear line? You can't get any farther away from the battlefield. Jeremiah exclaimed. How am I going to redeem my reputation out here if I'm not even near the fighting? JLF headquarters. Catais saw on the radar how quickly the Britannian forces were advancing. They were only using automated defenses and landmines they'd set up. But this did little to slow the enemy down. However, if they launched their nightmares now, they wouldn't have much of a chance to fight back as they were still outnumbered. They really was trapped, and the outcome looked all the bleaker. He was now starting to regret listening to the Autobots. Where was this counterattack they told him about? Where is Toto? He asked himself. If only he were here, the divine wind would blow. We'd have another miracle of Itsukushima. Toto and the 4 Holy Swords drove 2 large trucks through the roadblocks set up by the military as fast as they could. However, they were still over 80 kilometers away. They couldn't afford to play it safe right now. Their whole group was in danger of being completely wiped out. Sir, don't you think this is a little extreme? Asahina asked Toto. Asahina, Chiba, prep the custom beret, ASAP. Toto ordered the 2 nightmare pilots in the truck with him. Tell Urabe and Senba behind us to do the same. Traffic is blocked off all around Narita, and they've already begun to attack. I just pray that we're in time. It's time. Optimus ordered all the Black Knights and Autobots on the summit of the mountain. All Black Knights and Autobots, be prepared to roll out. With that order, all Black Knights loaded into their respective nightmares as Zero himself sat in his commander-type Barai, taking off his mask in the process. Colin and Rai readied their respective Gurren and Gekka as well. Alright, about time. Cliffjumper smirked as the Autobots readied their respective weapons or Energon blasters. Yeah, let's do this. One Black Knight cheered. With the Autobots and Zero by our side, there's no way we can lose. Time to send these wannabe cons packing. Bulkhead exclaimed as he readied his mace weapon. Everyone listen up. Zero relayed to all the Autobots and Black Knights from his nightmare. We are going to launch a surprise attack from the summit of the mountain. This attack should wipe out more than half the enemy force in an instant. Once that is done, we'll smash through all that remains of the Britannian forces. The primary objective of this operation is to ensure the survival of the Japan Liberation Front. Secondary objective if at all possible is to capture Princess Cornelia Lee Britannia. Okay kid, you ready to do the honors? Wheeljack motioned to an electrode that was pierced into the ground at the epicenter of the crater they dug up. You got it. Rai nodded as his Gekka pre-production rolled its way over to the electrode and placed its radiant wave surger onto the top. Make the wreckers proud, kid. Wheeljack smirked. Rai took a deep breath. Activating gauntlet now. He pressed a button on a switch. This activated the radiant wave surger and shot a powerful surge of thermal energy through the electrode and deep into the underground water supply. An empty cartridge was then ejected from the gauntlet as Rai could only wait. Nothing's happening. RC looked around to see nothing had changed. Wait for it, Wheeljack said. Just 2 seconds later, the whole ground began to rumble. Rai smiled excitedly. It worked. The entire ground around the summit of the mountain began to shake and explode out from the outside. Though the Autobots and Black Knights on the top were safe, a massive landslide had begun as it appeared the inside of the mountain had fallen in on itself. CC watched from her safe vantage point as what appeared to be a massive sea of rocks, boulders, dirt and land all fell down the mountain to destroy and bury everything in its path. This included virtually half the entire Britannian military force in the operation. The entire JLF headquarters was also shaken, but the interior remained intact, as did all the soldiers inside. The Britannian military on the outside however wasn't so lucky. G1 base. What's happening? Euphemia exclaimed out of shock as she and the officers saw on the radar half their forces had been buried. Impossible. How could a landslide come out of nowhere? The Nemesis. What? Starscream yelped in surprise as he and the other Decepticons present all gawked in surprise. Even Megatron was slightly caught off guard, as they saw the landslide engulf more than half the Britannian units. What in the Allspark just happened? Skywarp questioned. Some sort of geoquake. Thundercracker guessed. At such a large scale. And incidentally when the Britannian forces were about to wipe out the JLF. Highly doubtful. Knockout stated. So wait, someone caused that on purpose? Breakdown questioned. Megatron looked with an expression that showed how seriously he took the situation while also being impressed at the same time. The Autobots, and their Black Knight companions. The Decepticons looked to their master in surprise. Well, they certainly are creative, I'll grant them that much. Narita. Climb. Climb. Get to higher ground. Darlton used his Harkins to pull his Gloucester out of the rockslide, where he was helped by the identical nightmares of his two sons that were with him. Father, are you alright? David asked urgently. What in the hell just happened? Alfred questioned. A landslide at a time like this. Status report. Now. Cornelia barked as she and her units beside her, including Guilford and Edgar, watched in shock and borderline horror as they saw many of their own nightmares consumed and wiped out by the landslide. Alex and his unit have been completely wiped out. Claudio reported. It's just me and Bart left. Same here. David reported. Just me, Dad, and Alfred. Your Highness, pull back. You're in danger there. Guilford told her as she was dangerously close to the landslide. I don't care. Forget about me, where are the rest of our forces? Cornelia exclaimed. What in the name of Cybertron? Dreadwing exclaimed as his optics widened to see the landslide make its way all the way to the evacuated city, burying and crushing countless buildings and any soldiers stationed there. Oh my, it's already made its way to the bottom. Lloyd looked more amused if anything else as he saw the landslide's readings on his computer. These heat readings are abnormal. Cecile exclaimed. Do you believe a hydrovolcanic eruption was artificially induced? Impossible, unless of course someone used Rakshata's radiant wave surger. Lloyd said causally. Then again, I suppose an alien device could have been employed in this use. Has something happened? Suzaku asked the pair from his open cockpit in the Lancelot. But it has nothing to do with us, so just relax and continue waiting. Lloyd told him. Suzaku didn't like that answer, so he switched on his communication. Dreadwing, what's happening out there? A massive landslide has just swept down the mountain, wiping out an estimate half of Cornelia's own forces. Dreadwing reported. A what? Suzaku stood up from his chair in shock. The Ark, the bridge. The landslide appears to have stopped. Fixit reported as he and Ratchet saw the readings on the image of the mountain. More than half of Cornelia's forces are destroyed, and it seems the city is almost completely buried. Fixit wiped the top of his head. It's a good thing we had the city evacuated beforehand. Ratchet nodded slightly but kept his shocked optics on the image of the mountain as he saw the wave that illustrated the landslide encompass nearly everything in its path before finally coming to a halt. By the Allspark, he uttered. I've never seen anything so destructive. Lelouch himself had to grimace slightly. Okay, maybe that was a little overboard. Though we did succeed in evening the odds and isolating Cornelia, we could have toned it down a bit. He happened to glance towards Optimus as he saw the face of the Autobot leader on his screen. Optimus didn't look impressed nor disappointed. The Autobot leader had hoped this wouldn't be so destructive, but he was still glad that they at least at the city evacuated the night before, so there was little to no chance of any civilian casualties. However, Optimus' faceplate activated as he gave his orders. Autobots, Black Knights, roll out. Cornelia was still in shock over what had just happened when she received a communication from one of her soldiers. New enemy force confirmed moving in from the summit. Geass, unit is moving in to engage them. Hoping to take advantage of all the confusion, are they? Cornelia mused, thinking this was a trick of the Japan Liberation Front. Emergency call from Geass unit. What's wrong? It's not the Japan Liberation Front, it's the Black Knights and the Autobots. Both of them. What? Then it's zero. Jeremiah exclaimed as he immediately sped his Sutherland up the mountain. How dare he and those accursed Autobots show up here? Lord Jeremiah, you can't just abandon your post. Valletta tried to stop him, but he wasn't listening. This recalls drastic measures. Jeremiah exclaimed. If you want glory in life, then follow me. All the Autobots and Black Knights were divided into several groups as the Nightmares rode alongside the vehicle modes of the Transformers, driving down the mountain to smash their way through what limited reinforcements Cornelia had at her disposal. Between the new magnesium ammunition and the Autobots, energon blasters, this would be simple for them. RC took the lead in her group as she drove in her motorcycle form toward a group of Sutherlands. She sped past several of their gunshots and up a small mound of rock before using it like a ramp and jumping. She transformed and delivered a powerful kick straight to the head of one Sutherland to completely decapitate the Nightmare before landing behind two more. She drew her arm blades as she sliced off the legs of the one on her right, causing it to fall toward her, where she leapt to cut its head clean off. She then dashed to slice off the gun arm off the third Sutherland before slicing at its face, to render the Nightmare inoperable before it fell. Three more Sutherlands looked as if they might get the drop on her, but the vehicle form of Cliffjumper drove at high speeds to completely obliterate the one in the middle before transforming right in front of the remaining two Sutherlands and opening fire and rendering them into a burning pile of scrap. Way to jump the gun. Cliffjumper joked to his partner and friend. Save some for the rest of us, RC. Maybe you should try moving a bit faster. RC joked back to him. But their attention was caught as another Sutherland appeared in front of them and shot at them, forcing them to cover themselves with their arms as the Nightmare's ammunition only scratched them slightly. You too, Jeremiah shouted. Vile abominations, where is Zero? I demand that you bring him here to face me. Face Jeremiah Gottwald. Jeremiah, oh, right, you're that guy from Suzaku's court-martial. Cliffjumper recognized as he put on a friendly smile. Long time no see, I'm surprised you're still in the military after that little fiasco. How ya been? Zero's not here, RC said to Jeremiah. He's got bigger fish to fry than clowns like you. And we're on a bit of a timetable too. Cliffjumper smirked. So, we'll have to chat and catch up some other time, Orange Boy. There it was. That name that made him a pariah among his fellow soldiers. Bad enough these two Autobots didn't even acknowledge him as an adversary, but they actually brought up that name. Before he knew it, Jeremiah saw only red as he glared at the two Autobots that carried taunting smirks. Orange. Die. Before he could even make a move, however, the Gurren Mk2 suddenly appeared in front of him. It quickly drew a knife-like weapon to knock the rifle out of the Sutherland's hands. Jeremiah's Nightmare drew a pair of tonfas on its arms as it readied itself for battle. Lord Jeremiah, Valletta exclaimed, having caught up to him in her own Sutherland. Stay out of this, Jeremiah shouted. This is my duel. But look at it, I've never seen a Nightmare like that before. Valletta told him. Is it possible that the 11s? You think the 11s are capable of such technology? Jeremiah questioned. Oh, you better damn well believe it. Colin challenged from inside her Nightmare. It's not just the Autobots fighting Britannia anymore. We can finally go up against you head on and win. You're about to have your ass handed to you by this baby, the Gurren Mk2. She turned to RC and Cliffjumper. I got this, guys. Have at it. RC nodded. Yep, he's all yours, partner. Cliffjumper said as well. Jeremiah was the first to attack with his tonfas, but Colin was able to block it with the Gurren's silver claw. It spun around the Sutherland as Jeremiah tried to attack her, only for Colin to nimbly jump higher than any other Nightmare could jump before. It's fast, Jeremiah exclaimed as he was barely able to roll back in time to avoid a downward axe kick as the Gurren landed. Colin went on the offensive as she drove her Nightmare's knife straight at the Sutherland, which was barely able to block with the tonfas it held. She then readied its claw. Oh hell, there's something in its right hand. Jeremiah noticed. But if I keep my distance, he tried to back away. Don't think so. Cliffjumper taunted as Colin activated the extender on the claw, enabling it to reach out and grab the Sutherland's head. It tried to pull back, but the Gurren's grip was far too strong. Sorry. Colin muttered before she activated her radiant wave surger. It shot a massive surge of thermal energy all throughout the Sutherland, causing it to melt and explode all throughout its insides. The entire nightmare looked as if it was about to pop like a bag of popcorn. Jeremiah himself could feel the intense heat from the cockpit. What the hell is happening? He exclaimed as all his systems were overloading. Lord Jeremiah eject. Valletta warned him. I can't. Jeremiah shouted with bloodshot eyes. I have two of those god-forsaken Autobots right in front of me. He saw how both RC and Cliffjumper just stood there. RC had a hand on her hip while Cliffjumper just waved his hand, basically saying, goodbye. He saw his nightmare was about to eject him automatically. The auto eject, don't you dare activate. Jeremiah practically screamed as his whole body began to cook from the intense heat. His nose bled significantly and his whole Sutherland was ready to pop. I can still get them. I know it. I know I can still get them. Right before he lost consciousness, the auto-eject activated as his cockpit was shot far into the distance before the Sutherland exploded and the Gurren Mk2 stood dramatic in front of the fire. I won't lose. Colin declared. Not with this. Not with the Gurren Mk2. RC had a proud smile on her face as she nodded while Cliffjumper laughed. That's our girl. Valletta was in a state of complete shock. She defeated Lord Jeremiah. The Autobots are strong on their own, but the Black Knights, are they just as strong? How can we defeat them? The Nemesis. Soundwave had intercepted multiple radio transmissions which all but confirmed the Autobots were indeed present, along with the Black Knights. So that was their plan. Thundercracker mused. They let Cornelia come in close and they sprung a trap that wiped out most of her own forces, leaving her vulnerable for them to come in and take the win. Not a half-bad strategy. Knockout pointed out. This Zero certainly has a flair for the dramatics. He smirked. I like him. Breakdown scoffed. This whole thing just reeks of wrecker stench. So, we gonna go down there and smash some steel? Skywarp asked. Indeed, Lord Megatron. Starscream proposed. Perhaps it's time for us to play our hand. Megatron himself chuckled darkly. Let the slaughter begin. Battle for Narita. What are our losses? Darlton questioned over the radio just as he regrouped with what was left of his squad, including Alfred and David. I can only locate about 20% of our forces, Dad. David responded. 20%. Darlton exclaimed. Our command structure cannot sustain this. How could a landslide have come out of nowhere? Suzaku questioned from the Camelot unit as the top opened up so he could speak with Dreadwing directly. At a time like this, with such devastating effects, I doubt this was a natural phenomenon. Dreadwing assumed. That would make sense, considering we're getting so many unconfirmed reports about the Autobots and the Black Knights have appeared. Lloyd said casually. Zero, Suzaku muttered as Dreadwing's own optics narrowed. Well, this looks like it's our chance. Lloyd exclaimed. You're so rash. Cecile scolded him. Why's that? Cecile gave something of a mocking smile. Would you like a detailed explanation? Lloyd's own grin formed into an annoyed frown. No, I'll pass. We are not doing anything without Lord Megatron's orders. Dreadwing stated firmly. But Dreadwing, Suzaku tried to reason. I understand your concerns, Suzaku, however for this operation we act directly under my master. We cannot rush in without knowing the full situation, that is simply asking for trouble. Once our superiors have full knowledge of the situation, they will give us our orders. Suzaku didn't respond, though he knew Dreadwing had a point, but he didn't like having to sit by and do nothing at a time like this. G1 headquarters. Is the Viceroy safe? Yes, she was outside the mudflow. But most of the units guarding her flank are lost, that means she's totally isolated. What the hell are those purebloods doing? Lord Kuehl opened fire at the incoming RC in her vehicle mode, but she was able to avoid all the bullets shot at her before she transformed directly underneath the enemy Sutherland and used the momentum combined with her arm blades to vertically slice the entire nightmare in half, killing the pilot in the process. Lord Kuehl. Valletta exclaimed in horror. Multiple enemy Sutherlands tried to shoot her down. But both Cliffjumper, in his vehicle mode, and the Gurren Mk2 soared right towards the enemy. Cliffjumper transformed and delivered a punch that completely wrecked the cockpit of one Sutherland before opening fire with his energon blasters to obliterate a second. The Gurren swerved in from behind him to slash its knife and decapitate one Sutherland before attaching her radiant wave surger onto the cockpit of another, before Colin activated it and the Sutherland exploded shortly after. RC, Cliffjumper, Colin, we've isolated the unit being led by General Darlton a few clicks from your current position. Ratchet informed as Colin's nightmare received the data and brought it up on her screen. Intercept them before they are able to regroup with Cornelia. Right. Colin nodded as she drove her Sutherland to follow the coordinates just as RC and Cliffjumper transformed to follow her. They're getting away. One pureblood exclaimed as there were only 3 left, including Valletta. Go after them. Negative. Valletta stated. Our first priority is protecting the Viceroy. We must regroup with her immediately. Meanwhile, in another part of the mountains, multiple enemy Sutherlands faced an incoming group of bots and BKs consisting of Zero, Ogi, and Tamaki in their respective beret alongside the vehicle modes of Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, and Ironhide as they drove down the slope. The enemy units opened fire. All units, cover Optimus. Zero ordered. Let him and the Autobots take the lead, we'll handle all the stragglers. Understood. Ogi replied just as the 3 Autobots took the lead. Optimus was the first to attack as he barreled himself directly towards 7 Sutherlands. He ramming and ran over 2 of them in his vehicle mode before transforming and grabbing a third by its head and throwing it at least 100 feet away from the area. His right arm converted into a blade as the Autobot leader slashed downward to vertically cut a Sutherland in half before his left arm transformed into an energon blaster that he shot and blew out the cockpit of the 5th Sutherland. Optimus then decapitated the 6th Sutherland before punching down to obliterate the 7th with a single punch. Ironhide was next as he transformed to face on 4 Sutherlands. They opened fire, but he was already on the attack as he simply blasted his energon cannons to reduce all 4 enemy nightmares to scrap metal in one large blast. Bumblebee gave him back up as he drove up a hillside and flew off it like a ramp towards 3 incoming Sutherlands. He crashed into and destroyed the middle one before transforming as he landed to sweep both his feet and knock both of them down to the ground in one fell swoop. He shot with both his energon blasters at the heads to disable the nightmares. Ogi saw the 3 Autobots work and was beyond amazed. Though he'd seen them in action before, it was still a sight to behold. Especially Optimus as he took down more than half a dozen nightmares in an instant. Come on Ogi. You heard Zero, let's back em up. Tamaki stated. Right. Ogi got back to reality as both their beret came to a halt in front of a group of 5 Sutherlands. They immediately opened fire on the enemy. Due to their high-heat magnesium ammunition, the bullets not only shot through the enemy nightmares like Swiss cheese, they even melted in certain areas due to the intense heat, a few even exploded. Hot damn. This magnesium stuff is awesome. How come we never tried this before? Tamaki exclaimed with a grin as Ogi was just as amazed himself. Don't get too cocky, soldiers. Ironhide instructed. We're not done yet. Ironhide is correct, we must maintain our guard. Optimus agreed as he accessed his comms. Ratchet, any sign of the Decepticons? Not yet, but that's bound to change any minute. Ratchet replied. However, we are detecting multiple nightmare signals emerging from the mountains. Fix-It reported. They don't appear to match any Sutherland or any other Britannian frequencies, they could be the JLF. Looks like they headed our warning, that's good. Ogi assumed. So, are they on our side? We can't know for sure. Zero informed. Keep your focus on the Britannian forces, but also keep an eye out. The JLF could be our allies, or they could just be trying to escape. Either way, do not engage unless they engage us first. Yes sir. Ogi responded. If we manage to pull this off, we can score a huge victory over Britannia. Lelouch thought to himself. Even so. Meanwhile, just outside the mountain, 2 familiar trucks were well within range, but no one was driving. They had handles on the steering wheels and gas pedals to keep them going as 5 particular pilots mounted their nightmares. All units, are you ready? Toto questioned. Yes sir. 4 voices replied at the same time. All right, deploy the custom beret. Toto ordered. Deploying. 5 beret were brought up to the top of the moving trucks. 4 were dark gray, while the one at the lead had a beige color to it. Each of them had some kind of katana-like weapon attached to it. These were known as Barai Kai. Listen up, Toto began to instruct. It seems like the Autobots and their Black Knight allies have the same goal as us, which should allow us to hit Cornelia from behind. Capture Cornelia now. Assist the Autobots and the Black Knights. Take revenge for what happened 7 years ago. Yes, sir. By the honor of the 4 holy swords. What? Cornelia exclaimed as one of her own Gloucesters was suddenly exploded, and out of the smoke came Rai in his Geass pre-production, alongside Bulkhead and Wheeljack in their vehicle modes. The 2 Autobots transformed as Bulkhead used the momentum, driving his fist up as it converted into his mace, and he completely crushed one Sutherland entirely just as Wheeljack opened fire with both his Energon blasters to destroy the heads off 2 Sutherlands. The 2 Autobots, along with Rai in his nightmare, came face to face with Cornelia, Guilford, Edgar, along with Bart and Claudio, having to all manage regroup in their Gloucesters along with a few other Sutherlands. The Autobots. Guilford shouted. Wait, what's that blue nightmare? Edgar questioned. Hold on, who's that white Autobot? I've never seen that one in the reports before. Bart stated. Wheeljack smirked as he drew both his swords and pointed one towards Cornelia's Gloucester. You in the cape, you're that royal lady Cornelia. Cornelia narrowed her eyes at being addressed so casually by an enemy. And just who are you, Autobot? Name's Wheeljack, and you're now face to face with the Wreckers. He, Bulkhead, and Ray's Geass all stood firmly facing the enemy. Wreckers? Guilford questioned in thought. What is that? Some sort of special Autobot unit. They might be more organized than we thought. Protect Her Highness. Guilford exclaimed as he and the 3 other Glaston Knights surrounded their princess, and 10 Sutherlands in total zoomed towards the 3 Wreckers. Let's do this, guys. Rai stated, as a Geass sigil formed in his left eye. He soared towards the enemy as his Geass drew its katana. One Sutherland tried to impale him with a lance, but Rai swung the katana down to slice through the lance like butter before slicing the Sutherland's arm and cockpit in a single swing. Rai launched his Geass Radiant Wave Surger at a second incoming Sutherland, which grabbed the cockpit before he activated it. Just like with Collins, the enemy Nightmare melted and popped from the inside before it completely exploded. 3 Sutherlands charged towards Bulkhead with their lances. The frontmost one tried to pierce him, but he stood firm and the lance didn't even penetrate the metal skin on Bulkhead as it was crushed against him. Bulkhead delivered an upward swing with his mace to obliterate the front half of the Sutherland, cockpit and all. He converted his left hand into his Energon cannon to shoot and obliterate the second enemy just as the third was about to charge him, but Bulkhead caught the Sutherland's lance with both hands with no effort before spinning his body to spin the lance an enemy Nightmare before letting go to send the Sutherland flying to parts unknown. 4 Sutherlands shot at Wheeljack as they rolled towards him, but he swung his swords to block each bullet that was coming his way before the enemy got close enough for Wheeljack to go on the offensive. He sliced vertically to cut one Sutherland in half before impaling the second in the cockpit with his blade. He then jumped up above a third and brought his blades down to decapitate the Sutherland before spinning his blades back and driving them backwards into the 4th and final Sutherland. Cornelia herself growled at how easily those 2 Autobots and that single Black Knight obliterated a dozen Sutherlands like they were nothing. She would have given the order for the ones guarding her rear to attack if it weren't for Guilford's alert. Your Highness, enemies coming from behind. What? The 5 Barai Kais piloted by the 4 holy swords suddenly appeared out of the forest, each one drawing a katana blade near identical to the one Rai was using and attacked immediately. Toto took the lead as he used his Nightmare's katana to cut one Sutherland in half from behind before zooming to slice a second one incoming. Surround them, Toto ordered as his 4 companions came in from behind. Who are these guys? Wheeljack asked. Those are Beret, I think, but they're not ours. Rai identified. They gotta be JLF. Bulkhead assumed. So, they're on our side. Wheeljack wondered. Just as Toto zoomed in to slash and destroy another Sutherland, he addressed the Wrecker trio. Autobots, Black Knights, I understand that our groups have not been on the best of terms in the past. But for now we have a common goal. We'll assist you in defeating Britannia, while you assist us in evacuating our forces. That would be a yes. Rai answered Wheeljack's previous question. Bulkhead smirked. Sounds like a deal. He spoke to Toto directly as he and Wheeljack ran while Rai piloted his Sutherland to assist their new allies in destroying the last of the Sutherlands. "This reminds me of 7 years ago," Asahina said. "But it's different now," Chiba stated. "This time not only do we have nightmares, but allies of our own. I think it's time to finally put Britannia in their place," Urabe said with an excited grin. Guilford, Claudio, Bart, Edgar, and the other Glaston knights present spread out to engage the Autobots, Rai, Toto, and the 4 holy swords and protect their princess. "Your Highness, leave them to us. Please, you have to withdraw for now," Guilford told his princess as he used his Gloucester's lance to block Wheeljack's swords. Cornelia knew that Guilford could handle this, she had faith in her knight. But above all, she also knew that if the Autobots were here, then their leader wouldn't be far behind. "Very well, I know a way to turn this around. Guilford, after you drive them back, meet me at point -9. Point 9. I understand." Guilford nodded as he broke away from Wheeljack. "Cornelia," Senba exclaimed as he and Urabe drove their Baraikais straight for the princess but had to use their katanas to block both Harkins her Gloucester shot at them. "You weaklings." Cornelia thrusted her lance at Senbei's Baraikai, but the weapon was batted away by a slash from the blue Gekka's sword. "Don't think so, lady," Rai exclaimed as he tried to lash his Surger claw at her, but she swerved her Gloucester under it and drove away from the scene. "At last, Optimus Prime. For the humiliation that you dealt me, I shall finally destroy you," Cornelia thought to herself with an evil smirk as she drove towards her intended destination. After her, Senba was about to pursue her, but Rai raised his Nightmare's silver claw to halt their advance. "No, let her go." "What? You're letting her get away?" Urabe questioned. "Just trust us," Rai stated before accessing his comms. "Zero, Optimus," Cornelia took the bait. "She's left her royal guard and heading for your position now." "Understood. Well done, Rai," Optimus congratulated. "Oh, by the way, we got some backup," Rai informed. "Some beret being used by the JLF are helping us fight off Cornelia's royal guard. They seem to be holding their own." "Good. Demolish them. Don't let a single one help Cornelia," Zero ordered. "You got it," Rai smirked, his Geass flashing even brighter as he, Bulkhead, Wheeljack, Toto, and the 4 holy swords regrouped to face the Glaston knights. "We will not allow you to pass," Guilford stated firmly as he readied his Gloucester. "Autobots, Black Knights, JLF, this mountain will be the end of all of you." "Big talk, how about you put those words into action?" Bulkhead challenged. Wheeljack smirked. "This should be fun." JLF headquarters. Toto's face appeared on the screen of the control room, which was more or less functional despite the massive tremor that shook up the entire mountain. "I'm sorry for the late arrival, General." General Geass couldn't contain his relieved smile. "Toto, we've been waiting." "General, we're assisting the Autobots and the Black Knights as we speak. We have the same goal, and I believe that we can accomplish it by working together." "How many more units do we have?" "Almost all of them," Geass stated. "The Autobot leader gave us a warning of Cornelia's attack and had us dig ourselves in to avoid getting swept up in the landslide. We've sent our forces out to assist them." "Good. This is our chance to turn the whole war around." It was happening all over the mountain. JLF Beret made contact with the modified Black Beret and Sutherlands all owned by the Black Knights and quickly overwhelmed what was left of Cornelia's forces. In addition to being heavily outnumbered, the Black Knights' custom magnesium ammunition practically melted all the enemy Nightmares as if they were made of butter. Needless to say, it was a losing battle for Britannia. Even Darlton and his squad was forced back enemy fire from the mountain. "Fall back," Darlton ordered as he and his unit fired their rocket launchers to stave off the enemy. "We have to find a way to link up with Viceroy Cornelia." "You don't have that kind of time." Darlton turned around in surprise to see Cliffjumper arrive on the scene in his vehicle mode, before he transformed and punched down one Gloucester. He jumped back to avoid a rocket shot at him by Darlton as he, Alfred, David, and the rest of their squad aimed their heavy artillery weapons at him, but they didn't get a chance to fire as RC speed up as a motorcycle off an incline over them before transforming and opening fire with her energon blasters as she fell. With multiple precise hits, all the enemy's heavy weapons had been destroyed. "You, filthy alien," Alfred was just about to charge in at RC, but the Gurren landed in front to halt his path as Colin lashed out her radiant wave surger claw to grab onto the cockpit of Alfred Sutherland before she activated the deadly device. Alfred looked in surprise as he saw his entire cockpit beginning to overheat as his nightmare began to explode. "What? No. I can't lose. Not to a damn 11. Those were the last words he ever said before his entire nightmare exploded. "Alfred!" David exclaimed in shock at seeing his adoptive brother die, and even Darlton was rendered speechless. "Not so fun watching your friends die right in front of you, is it?" Colin growled. A part of her did feel bad for killing some of these people. A few of them could just be following orders and had families, but she knew that there was no getting through to Britannia. The only way to survive was to fight and beat them, and with the Gurren in her possession, as well as her friends the Autobots by her side, she was determined to do just that. "Destroy them all," Darlton ordered as he and his squad charged forward. Colin drew her Gurren's knife as she got to work to destroy two Gloucesters, while RC drew her arm blades to block and slash at the Harkins launched by David's own nightmare. Cliffjumper ran directly towards Darlton's charging nightmare before the Britannian knight lashed out a punch, but Cliff swerved around it to deliver a punch of his own to knock him back. Cliff then swept his feet to knock Darlton's Gloucester onto the ground. He aimed his Energon blaster at the Nightmare's head to disable it, but Darlton launched his Harkins upwards to force Cliffjumper back as they managed to scratch his face slightly. The red Autobot felt a trickle of Energon coming down his mouth and smirked as he saw Darlton stand back up in his nightmare. "Looks like someone knows how to actually fight." G1 Headquarters. Sub-Viceroy Euphemia, you must act now to prevent a disaster. One officer stated to the young princess. "Send thee in the G1. "No," the princess replied. "But both commanders Guilford and Darlton are completely pinned down." Another officer told her. "Even the most elite of the Glaston Knights are stuck. Viceroy Cornelia's life is at stake here. We can't." Euphemia exclaimed. She was beyond worried for her elder sister's safety, but she couldn't risk the lives of those that were here with her. "There's a field hospital here, and civilians." However, this wasn't completely correct as the Autobots and Black Knights already arranged to have the city evacuated the night before. Besides, the G1 base is our command center. The Viceroy ordered me not to move it no matter what. I just can't. "That won't be necessary, Sub-Viceroy Euphemia." Euphemia and the officers looked up in surprise to see the main screen turn to static before it began to clear to reveal the face of Megatron. Seeing his red eyes was enough to make Yuffie's heart skip a beat, but even more surprising was another screen popping up right next to it with the faces of Suzaku, Lloyd, and Cecile on it. Even Dreadwing's face appeared on a smaller third screen. "Me, Megatron," Euphemia stuttered. "The Nemesis." Soundwave was easily able to access the G1's communications link and was able to connect it to that of the Avalon as well as Dreadwing's own personal communication as the Lord of the Decepticons addressed all those he contacted from the bridge. All incoming reports have indicated that the Black Knights and the Autobots have arrived onto the scene, and even the Japan Liberation Front is providing their assistance in this battle. Megatron informed. With Cornelia's own forces already reduced to less than 10%, it is clear she is incapable of handling this overwhelming enemy. As such, I am now assuming command of this operation. "What? You will do no such thing." While the Britannian officers exclaimed their frustrations, Lloyd actually looked more than a little intrigued. "Aha, so the high and mighty leader of the Decepticons is coming out to play, is he?" Lloyd mused, though Megatron shot him a small glare, which was enough to frighten Asplund, and even Cecile, as they stumbled back. "In addition, I am also ordering the deployment of the Lancelot and its pilot, Suzaku Kururugi." Megatron continued. "Dreadwing, I trust you to stay by Kururugi's side. Though he is a formidable pilot, it has been noted that he still has trouble dealing with the Autobots." "As you wish, Lord Megatron." Dreadwing nodded. "I'm being deployed too," Suzaku voiced in surprise. "Of course, it is what you wanted, is it not?" Megatron reminded. "To be on the battlefield as a soldier as opposed to being forced on the sidelines and simply watch." Though Suzaku offered no response, he silently agreed that he wanted to get out there and help. He hated not being able to do anything. "You cannot be serious," one Britannian officer stated. "The ASEEC is an irregular unit with an 11 for a pilot. They cannot. The ASEEC is under my command, as it is an irregular unit as you say, but that also means it is able to be integrated into whatever unit that chooses it. Megatron said calmly yet firmly. I have taken ownership of the unit and placed it in my command, and seeing how your precious Viceroy Cornelia is on the verge of being captured or killed, with her forces overwhelmed, I would say the only way to avert a disaster is for me to take the reins. And in case you are wondering, this is not a request. Megatron's glare was enough to silence and startle Euphemia as well as the officers present as the Decepticon leader turned to the Camelot unit and Dreadwing. Do you all find these terms to be acceptable? I do, Master. Dreadwing bowed his head. Oh absolutely. Lloyd exclaimed joyously. I've been wanting to test the upgrades Knockout gave to my Lancelot, and what better way to see them in action than in a real battle? Young Kururugi. Megatron asked, the only person who didn't respond yet. Though Suzaku wouldn't openly say that he fully trusted Megatron, he knew that having his permission here would mean that he'd be deployed into the battle, which was what he needed. Yes, send me into the battle. Very well. Megatron smiled, doing his best to hide the malevolent expression within it. Suzaku. Euphemia spoke to the young honorary Britannian directly. Save my sister. Please. Suzaku was slightly startled as Euphemia spoke to him on a personal level but maintained a professional persona. Right, I won't fail. Megatron noticed the observation with interest. It would seem that Suzaku and Euphemia are becoming closer. Perhaps this relationship could be of use to him, if properly manipulated. Narita. Guilford clashed his lance against Wheeljack's swords, but the Autobot was able to drive a powerful kick to send the Gloucester skidding back. Guilford threw a chaos mine into the air, but before it could deploy, Wheeljack threw his own grenade up to meet it, causing both to explode in the air. Before Guilford could even respond to that, Wheeljack was already on him, swinging his swords at him, which Guilford was barely able to block with his lance as he backed away. Is that all you got? Wheeljack taunted. Damn it, Guilford muttered to himself. The Autobot are much stronger than we thought. It wasn't just Guilford that was having trouble. Claudio thrusted his Gloucester's lance against the katana wielded by Ray's Gecko, which he blocked and parried. Claudio backed away as he launched his slash Harkins at Rai, but the young Black Knight instinctively threw up his silver claw and activated the Radiant Wave Surger just as the Harkins made contact, causing them to melt and rendering them useless. Damn 11. Claudio grunted. May wanna take a look behind you, pal. Rai told him, causing Claudio to look in surprise as Todo's own Baraikai came in with his katana. Claudio couldn't react in time as Todo slashed down diagonally at the cockpit, killing the pilot inside. Claudio! Bart exclaimed, seeing his brother die, but he didn't even get a chance to react as Bulkhead already ran towards him to attack. Bart panicked and instinctively threw out his lance towards Bulkhead, but the green Autobot was able to block and crush it with a swing of his mace weapon before forming his Energon cannon in his other arm and shooting at it. With a close-ranged and point-blank shot, Bart and his whole nightmare were utterly destroyed. Senba zoomed in to cut down one Gloucester while Asahina provided backup as well to cut down a Gloucester coming to ambush them. With Bulkhead, Rai, and Wheeljack, even Todo, facing off against the most elite Glaston Knights, the rest seemed pretty insignificant compared to them. Edgar, the only remaining elite among the Glaston Knights present, save for Guilford, was stuck on the defensive from Chiba and Urabe's Baraikais. But fortunately, backup quickly came as multiple bullets were shot down from a trio of Sutherlands, the remnants of the Purebloods being led by Valletta as they joined Guilford. Lord Guilford, we're here to help, Valletta stated as she rolled up right next to Guilford's Gloucester. What about Zero? Where is he? And that lead Autobot, Optimus Prime? Guilford questioned. I don't know. We haven't seen either of them yet. Wheeljack chuckled, getting both their attention. You haven't figured it out yet. Don't you think it's odd? You guys are up against the Wreckers and the JLF's best soldiers right now, and your forces here have been cut in half. Don't you think it's odd that we're all still here and none of us have gone after your little princess? What are you getting at, Autobot? Valletta questioned out of anger. You've been wondering where our leaders are. Maybe you should take a look where your leader is right now. Wheeljack said with a knowing smirk. Guilford's eyes widened as he had realized that they have been played. He looked for the signal of Cornelia's nightmare and found it heading right for a group of enemy units that would surround her in minutes. Princess Cornelia. Cornelia's Gloucester had made its way towards a massive trench and found her way barred by both Bumblebee and Ironhide. I got the message, Guilford. Suzaku placed his ignition key within the Lancelot and got it primed and ready for launch. The White Nightmare stood at the ready as Dreadwing stood by his side. Stay beside me, Suzaku. Dreadwing told him. Do not go off on your own. Consider that an order. I understand, Dreadwing. Megatron contacted Suzaku again as his face appeared on the cockpit's monitor. Suzaku Kururugi, you have the coordinates, though we have reason to believe the Autobot leader, Optimus Prime, is there as well. Suzaku's eyes widened slightly as he remembered the Autobot leader and how he and Zero saved him from being executed, as well as saving all his friends from the terrorists at the hotel jacking, so he had mixed feelings about going against him. However, you were ordered not to engage him. Battle whatever Autobots or Black Knights are nearby, and secure Cornelia if you desire, but do not engage Optimus. I shall deal with him myself. Suzaku looked in surprise. You're coming here. But of course. Megatron replied as though it were obvious. I am the leader of the Decepticons, and an effective leader must set the best example for his troops. Wouldn't you agree? That caught Suzaku off guard. An effective leader must set the best example for his troops. That phrase sounded almost exactly like Lelouch when the two played chess in their childhood. He remembered Lelouch always started with the king piece, and when Suzaku asked why, Lelouch would respond with, if the king doesn't lead, how can he expect his subordinates to follow? The words were different, but Lelouch's saying was nearly identical to Megatron's, and it made him feel quite uncomfortable. There is one thing however that I must ask, Suzaku. Megatron told him. From what Dreadwing has told me of you, you do not like it when someone's life is taken, and yet you are in the military where death is not just likely, it is guaranteed. Why is that? Suzaku straightened himself. I'm in the military to stop people from dying. Megatron raised an eyebrow. Quite contradictory, and you may soon find that life is not so simple. But, why don't we see if your actions merit the same results of your words? Be ready to be deployed. As you command. Suzaku struggled to say the last part, mostly because of how he still doesn't completely trust Megatron, but he still said it as he was his commander for this operation. Lord Megatron. The Nemesis, the bridge. Megatron couldn't contain his own sneer as he knew that Suzaku was almost completely within his grasp. He contacted all his subordinates via Soundwave as the Decepticon surveillance chief prepared to open multiple ground bridges at once. All units, launch immediately. Narita. What are you waiting for, kid? Ironhide challenged Cornelia. Come and get us. Filthy abominations. Cornelia thrusted her lance towards the Autobot duo, though Bumblebee jumped up to the wall and propelled off it to land behind Cornelia. Ironhide used the blunt side of his cannon to block and parry Cornelia's lance before delivering a punch to send the Gloucester reeling backwards, right towards Bumblebee, who punched the Nightmare's face himself and sent it crashing into the side of the trench. Cornelia launched her Harkins upwards towards the other trench wall to fly over both Autobots and shoot down at them with her rifle, but they managed to maneuver out of the way and avoid getting shot at. However, just as her Gloucester hung from the wall itself was shot by multiple magnesium bullets and several energon blasts, causing it to collapse and Cornelia to fall. She glanced backwards to see the ones responsible. Prime. Zero. She practically gnashed her teeth. This is checkmate, Cornelia. Zero spoke from his Barai, with Optimus, Ogi, and Tamaki right beside him. Your move was beyond predictable. Ever since Optimus defeated you in Saitama, you've just been dying for a rematch. Your pride blinded you, and in your haste for vengeance you fell right into your trap. Oh, and in case you're wondering, your army is all but finished. Ironhide addressed Cornelia directly. You've got maybe half a dozen soldiers left, so I'd say you've lost. Princess Cornelia. Optimus began. Despite your hostile intent towards the innocent, I can see that you are at least compassionate towards your own soldiers and civilians. Is there a point to your bluster, Prime? Cornelia questioned. Only that Megatron knows nothing of that. He lives solely for destruction and conquest. Optimus continued. But there is another path. Surrender now, and I guarantee your life will be spared, as will the lives of your remaining soldiers. Unfortunately, Cornelia appeared to have lost all sense of reason. You're a fool, Prime. I will never surrender, especially to you of all people. She aimed her rifle directly at Optimus, but before she could shoot, it was blasted out of her hands by Bumblebee with his Energon blaster. Cornelia roared as she thrusted her lance at the yellow Autobot, but Bumblebee swerved around it and delivered a punch to the side of the Gloster. The Autobot scout took a stance like a professional boxer and laid multiple punches across the Nightmare, forcing it to stumble backwards. Cornelia was about to go on the attack again, but Ironhide grabbed the Nightmare's cape from behind. Piece of advice, you may want to rethink the cape. It doesn't really help you in a fight. Ironhide said with a knowing smirk before pulling on the cape, pulling in Cornelia's Nightmare, which Ironhide grabbed to lift over his whole body and slam it down hard onto the ground. Cornelia grunted as she felt her whole body rock, but she was able to pull it back up, albeit a bit shakily. However, Zero opened fire with his Barai's rifle. I's magnesium ammunition was able to blast off and practically melt the Gloster's right arm, as well as the rifle attached to it. Coward, she spat to Zero, attacking from behind. If I recall correctly, you tried to massacre the entire Saitama ghetto in an attempt to drive us into the open. Lelouch said with a glare in his eyes. Someone who is willing to slaughter defenseless children really has no right to call anyone a coward. Darlton groaned as his Gloster was punched back and slammed against the wall by an attack from Cliffjumper. David's own Gloster was also knocked back, though it was missing its right arm, courtesy of RC. The two Autobots as well as Colin in the Gurren Mk2 faced and cornered the only two Britannian Nightmares remaining in the area. I can't believe it, David uttered, fear lingering in his voice. Is this how we're gonna go out? The Autobots. Black Knights, Darlton thought as glanced fearfully at the trio facing him. I never imagined they'd be this strong. Senba sliced down one Sutherland as Urabe did the same for the second in their Baraikais. Valletta desperately tried to use her Nightmare's tonfas, but Rai was able to destroy them easily with a slice of his Gekka's katana. He moved in to grab her Sutherland's head with his Surger claw, but Valletta, the last surviving member of the Purebloods, was forced to eject to save her own life. Asahina parried his Baraikai's katana against a Gloster's lance, but the Britannian Nightmare was cut down from behind by Chiba. Bulkhead caught the lance from Edgar's Gloster before he grabbed and completely tore off the arm of the Nightmare. He then crushed the head unit with a clap of his massive hands to disable it, though Edgar himself was alive. Guilford was locked in a stalemate against Toto, his Gloster's lance against the Baraikai's katana, but Wheeljack had jumped into the air above the duel and sliced both his swords to completely sever both arms of the Gloster before finishing it off with a kick to knock it down. With all the Britannian forces in the area dealt with, Bulkhead, Wheeljack, Rai, Toto, and the four holy swords came together to look down expectantly at the Britannian knight, expecting him to be smart and surrender. The defeated knight's own eyes shook with terror, but not for himself. If this keeps up, Princess Cornelia will be. Guilford, his eyes widened as he heard his princess contact him and speak in a tone that indicted this would be the last time that she'd be speaking to him. Guilford, my knight, thank you for everything. I couldn't have asked for a better knight, nor can I think of anyone else to take care of you. Fee. I will not surrender. As a Britannian princess I will fight to the last. Princess Cornelia. Before any of the Autobots or Black Knights could move on the vulnerable Cornelia, they and all other bots and BKs in the area got an emergency call from Ratchet and Fix-It. Emergency. Emergency. Fix-It shouted. Multiple Decepticon units incoming. Repeat, multiple Decepticons incoming. The entire mountain is surrounded. I'm counting over 100 Decepticon signals closing in. Ratchet reported. True to his word, a large ground bridge portal opened up in the air high above the group as several Viacons in their jet vehicle modes flew out, being led by a large silver Cybertronian aircraft. However, they weren't the only ones, as they were also joined in by a large blue jet, which was the vehicle mode of Dreadwing, and right behind him came a large explosion from the side of the trench, with the Lancelot itself coming out of the dust. Bumblebee and Ironhide had immediately leapt out of the way and up above the trench as the Lancelot emerged. Oh, you gotta be freaking kidding. Ironhide grunted. All units, open fire now. Optimus ordered as Hyogi, Zero, Bumblebee, Tamaki, and Ironhide shot up in the air towards the incoming force of Viacons that responded with their own Energon blasts. First that damn white nightmare from Shinjuku and Lake Kawaguchi, now this. Tamaki shouted out of frustration as he and the other black beret attempted to dodge the red energon blasts while also returning fire. Complain later. Survive now. Bumblebee bleeped as he did the same. However, Suzaku wasn't too concerned with the Autobots at the moment as the Lancelot quickly slid in front of the downed Gloucester owned by Cornelia. Viceroy, are you alright? I came to help your highness. Suzaku stated. Special Corps. Who authorized you? Cornelia voiced in surprise. Megatron, the one who authorized the launch, observed Suzaku's approach. He used the Varus of his nightmare to clear a path. Clever. He should make a fine Decepticon. A few Viacons were shot down, at least 6 of them all transformed and landed in front of the group of Autobots and Black Knights, along with Dreadwing and the Decepticon leader himself. Optimus. It has been a long time. The tyrant greeted with an evil smile. Megatron. Optimus narrowed his eyes. A large ground bridge portal opened up near the location of the Wreckers and Holy Swords, something that caused the JLF soldiers to look in surprise. What is that? Chiba voiced, never seeing the portal up close before. That's not one of ours. Bulkhead exclaimed with worry. Get back. Everyone get back now. Bulkhead's warning proved to be right as at least a dozen Viacon troopers all drove out in their vehicle modes, followed by a certain trio of Seekers in their jet modes, as well as a certain red car and a large blue truck. Just as the portal closed, the Decepticons all transformed to reveal not only the Viacons present, but as well as Knockout, Breakdown, Thundercracker, Skywarp, even Starscream who sneered evilly at the heroes. Scrap. Rai cursed. One single ground bridge portal opened just above the area where Cliffjumper, RC, and Colin all were, and one single Reaper drone flew out of it. It flew around the area before transforming and landing in front of the downed Britannian Nightmares owned by Darlton and David, revealing one of the most dangerous Decepticons ever known, Soundwave. Though Colin was startled by the appearance of this particular Decepticon, RC and Cliffjumper looked in partial fear, knowing just how dangerous of an enemy just arrived. That's not a good sign. Cliffjumper voiced. That's Megatron. Oji's eyes shook in fear, the first time laying his eyes on the Decepticon leader. He's a whole lot bigger than I thought he'd be. Tamaki gulped. Though Lelouch himself was beyond surprised that Megatron himself came here, and his appearance was intimidating to say the least, he was even more shocked to see the Lancelot here as it climbed its way out of the trench to join the Decepticons. Lelouch's eyes shook with rage as he not only knew who was piloting it, but at the smile he could practically see on Megatron's face, as though he brought Suzaku into his fold simply out of spite. Knowing that his best friend was being used like this made Lelouch's blood boil. Have you nothing to say to me, Optimus? Megatron teased. We haven't seen each other in years, I would have at least expected a hello. I have nothing else to say to you, Megatron. Optimus replied. This only caused Megatron to look even further amused. Going right into the conflict, I can see you have changed since our last encounter. Very well. He addressed his soldiers. Destroy them all, but Prime is mine. The Viacons did as ordered as they opened fire with their Energon blasters and charged forward. Scatter. Now. Ironhide exclaimed as he and Bumblebee rolled out of the way and returned fire with their own Energon blasters, while Zero, Tamaki, and Ogi in their beret rolled back and returned fire themselves. The 3 frontmost Viacons were blown away by Ironhide's cannons as the 4th was gunned down by Bumblebee while the remaining 2 ran after the tree beret. Zero opened fire and was able to hit one. The high-heat magnesium ammunition did as expected, as the high-temperature metal pierced through the metal skin of the Viacon trooper, killing it. The second one was about to gun down Zero, but Tamaki rammed his beret into the Viacon and pinned it to the wall. Looks like you cons ain't so tough after all. Tamaki's beret threw a punch, but the Viacon caught it with little to no effort. Tamaki's eyes widened in shock as the Viacon's own strength was easily able to overpower the Nightmare. With a chop from his other arm, the Viacon severed the arm of Tamaki's beret, much to his shock as it tripped and fell down. The Viacon then aimed its Energon blaster at Tamaki, but he was later gunned down by both Zero and Ogi with their beret. Tamaki, you alright? Ogi asked as he helped him up. Yeah, I think so. I expected the Decepticons to be strong. Lelouch thought to himself. But one trooper was still able to overpower a Nightmare. I've underestimated them. Look out. Ironhide suddenly appeared in front of the trio of Beret to block an incoming Harken from the Lancelot. Ironhide grabbed the Harken itself and used his own strength to try and pull the White Nightmare towards himself, but Suzaku swung a kick to Ironhide, which the veteran Autobot saw coming and caught it with his other hand before grabbing the foot with both his hands and throwing him away. HMMP, rookie. Ironhide commented even as he saw the Lancelot land gracefully. Kid's got some moves, but he still has a lot to learn. Dreadwing also appeared at the top of a cliffside with a large handheld cannon. He aimed it at Ironhide and the Black Knights, ready to blow them away, but several energon blasts hit his side, forcing him to shoot away from the group as Bumblebee ran along the side and shoot at him. Dreadwing aimed at the scout and shot at him, though Bumblebee was able to roll out of the way. Each cannon shot caused a large explosion that almost shook the whole cliffside. Ironhide saw the position they were in and knew the BKs were at a disadvantage, especially with Megatron this close. Plus with the rest of their forces spread so thin and so many Decepticons in the area, they had to regroup as soon as possible. Zero, you and the others try and regroup. We gotta get out of here, Ironhide told the leader of the Black Knights. Ironhide. Lelouch tried to protest. No time to argue. Just go, Ironhide exclaimed. Bumblebee, go with him and watch out for the Lancelot. I'll handle Dreadwing. You got it, Bumblebee nodded as he transformed and began to drive away with Zero, Ogi, and Tamaki right behind him in their beret. Even though Zero disagreed with Ironhide often, he knew he was right here. They had to regroup, possibly retreat, as he saw on his beret's screen just how many Decepticon signals were in the area. Needless to say, they were heavily outnumbered. The Lancelot, as expected, pursued after them. Dreadwing was about to transform and follow as well, but a blast from Ironhide's own cannon caught his attention. Pay attention, I'm the one you're fighting, Ironhide stated as he opened fire. Dreadwing returned fire with his larger cannon. The blasts hit the ground and sent Ironhide back, close towards the edge, but the veteran Autobot wasn't done yet as he charged a powerful blast in his right cannon and shot at the ledge underneath Dreadwing, causing the portion of the cliffside he stood on to collapse, and sending Dreadwing sliding and skidding down it and landing at even level with Ironhide. I know your type, Dreadwing. Ironhide began as he saw the Decepticon stand up. You like to do your dirty work from a distance with bombs and guns, right? Well, do you have the ball bearings to fight with your fists? Dreadwing, however, didn't feel insulted, but rather intrigued. Well, in this particular case, Autobot, I will be all too happy to make an exception. They both gave warriors yells as they charged at one another. Meanwhile, despite the battles occurring around them, Optimus and Megatron had yet to move from their spots. Optimus trusted Lelouch enough to make the right judgment and trusted Bumblebee to watch out for him. So, he kept his focus squarely on his old enemy. Your fellow Autobots and even your newfound allies are wise, Optimus. Megatron told him. They know when to retreat. As of said Megatron, I have nothing else to say to you. Optimus repeated. Very well, then let us see if you have gotten rusty during our time apart, old friend. Megatron sneered as the two enemies ran towards each other to engage in brutal combat. Meanwhile, Soundwave faced RC, the Gurren Mk2, and Cliffjumper alone, or so it seemed as he deployed 4 units from his side. From his chest, he produced Laserbeak. Ravage ejected from his back. From his right side, a blue Minicon Decepticon with large pile drivers for arms, this was Rumble. From his left side, an equally tall, red, Minicon Decepticon was deployed, this was Frenzy. What the heck? Colin voiced in surprise. Get ready to crumble, before Rumble. Rumble exclaimed as he drove his pile drivers into the ground, creating a small tremor that collapsed the portion of the cliffside RC, Cliffjumper, and the Gurren were standing on. They all tumbled and fell. Though RC and Cliffjumper fell 20 or 30 feet, they landed on stable ground, while Colin drove her Nightmare's knife into the cliffside, just above the ridge, before she could fall down with them. Soundwave then pointed over the ridge, ordering his mini-cons to face the Autobots. Ah yeah, time to dance. Frenzy said excitedly as he, Ravage and Rumble ran to jump over the ridge, while Laserbeak flew down. Soundwave meanwhile turned to face the 2 surviving Britannian Nightmares and pointed away from the battle. Darlton looked in surprise. Is he telling us to retreat? It would seem that were the case as Darlton contacted his son. David, let's get out of here. No need to tell me twice. David agreed as he and his adoptive father drove their heavily damaged nightmares away, just as Colin leapt her Gurren into the air and landed on the ground, facing Soundwave himself. Nice trick with those little mini-bots. She challenged. But do you know how to fight yourself? Colin readied her knife as well as her claw. In direct response, Soundwave took a combative stance himself, his arms extended almost like blades. With a roar, Colin shot her Gurren straight for Soundwave and lashed out both her claw and knife, but Soundwave dodged each attack almost gracefully, even with the knife just barely grazing his visor. Colin skidded past Soundwave and jumped upwards, flipping in the air to try and land a drop kick on Soundwave, but the faceless Decepticon leapt back to avoid it. Colin growled, not having gotten a single hit in as she zoomed at Soundwave again, lashing her knife, but Soundwave blocked the attack with his arm. Colin threw out her Radiant Wave Surger, but Soundwave crossed his arms in an X formation to block and lock it in place. Before Colin could activate it, Soundwave quickly produced a tentacle from his side and snapped it at Colin to send her skidding back. Soundwave noticed how different the Silver Claw appendage was from the rest of the Red Nightmare and did a quick scan. The design of the Radiant Wave Surger appeared on his visor and he saw just how dangerous it was, making a silent note to avoid it. Colin meanwhile had taken a few deep breaths. She expected the Decepticons to be tough, but to not get a single hit in, even with the Gurren Mk2, it really made her angry. Colin charged again, but Soundwave took advantage of her anger and was able to slip past her strike with the Radiant Wave Surger. While he was on her side, he launched one of his tentacles again, which managed to grab and attach itself to the Nightmare. Soundwave lifted it up into the air before spinning and slamming the Gurren down onto the ground hard in front of him. Colin yelled as she felt the rock and even spat out some blood before Soundwave dragged the Gurren along the ground and sent it skidding near the cliff on its backside. Before Colin could even regain her bearings and pull her Nightmare back up, Soundwave shot one of its tentacles to pin the Surger Claw onto the ground by its palm, seemingly rendering it useless as Soundwave produced another tentacle, the tip of it spinning like a drill as it aimed itself right for the cockpit. But Colin instinctively used her Gurren's remaining hand to grab the tentacle and try and keep it back. However, Soundwave appeared to be stronger as the drilling tentacle was inching ever closer to the cockpit. Colin glanced back and saw how pinned her Surger Claw was. She might not be able to use it on the Khan's face, she had to get out of this predicament quick. So, with some desperation, Colin activated the Radiant Wave Surger. This sent a wave of heat energy surging through the tentacle and right into Soundwave, which managed to shake up his internal systems, but nothing too damaging, and get him off Colin. Using this, Colin quickly pulled herself up and shot her claw at him, its fingers curved in like a fist, and landed a solid punch right on Soundwave's face. Soundwave stumbled back slightly but didn't falter. He looked at the Gurren as a large crack formed on his visor. Colin smirked. Looks like I can hurt you. Meanwhile, down on the cliffside below, RC and Cliffjumper both heard the commotion going on above them. Is she seriously picking a fight with Soundwave? Cliff voiced with concern. We gotta get up there now. RC exclaimed. Worry about yourselves first, bots. Frenzy launched himself into the air with jet boosters on his feet as he fired energon blasters from his hands at the pair, forcing them to separate. Rumble activated his pile drivers to create a tremor and knock down Cliffjumper just as Laserbeak flew down toward him and shot several energon lasers at him. But Cliff rolled out of the way and opened fire with his right arm at Laserbeak, and his left at Rumble, but the ground Mini-Con used his own pile drivers to propel himself into the air and avoid the attack. RC meanwhile ran and jumped to avoid Frenzy's assault as she returned fire with her own energon blasters, but she didn't get too many shots in as Ravage pounced on her back and bit down onto her shoulder, causing her to yell in pain. But she was able to grab Ravage and throw him off her. RC then came back to back with her partner as the four Mini-Cons circled them. I forgot how much I hate these guys. Cliffjumper commented. Rai lashed out his Surger Claw at a Viacon and grabbed his head. Let's see how this thing works on Cons. Rai activated his Geass Radiant Wave Surger. Just like with the nightmares before, the Viacon's body began to explode and pop from the inside until the whole Decepticon exploded. Rai didn't have much time to celebrate as he was forced to dodge laser fire from two more Viacons. Though he was quick enough with his Gekka to avoid all the shots and zoom towards them with his katana to cut them down. Toto and the 4 holy swords were forced to keep their distance as a group of 7 Vyakons shot at them. Though the Khans were unable to hit any of their Baraikais, the 4 holy swords couldn't find any openings to get in close. These things aren't like Britannian nightmares. Chiba stated. Are these those Decepticons we've heard about? Sure, seems like it. Senba uttered as he tried to keep his distance himself. How do we take these things down? Asahina questioned. Go for the joints. Bulkhead told them as he smashed a Vyakon with his mace. Sever their arms and legs but move in fast. He stated before Bulkhead was immediately tackled by Breakdown and sent tumbling through several trees. Toto seemed to get it. You heard him. Go for their joints. Switch to spinning life or death formation. Right. All 4 holy swords said at the same time as all 5 Baraikais followed Toto's lead and began to circle the 7 Vyakons so fast that they couldn't get a lock on them. Several tried to lash out with their energon blasters, but as they did, the beret threw katanas outward to sever their arms. They then moved in closer and began to cut away at the Vyakons' arms and legs, before getting to their heads. By the time they were done, all the Vyakons had been reduced to a literal pile of scrap. However, they didn't have time to celebrate as a missile blast hit the ground, sending their nightmares skidding away. So, this is the Japan Liberation Front's best. Starscream mused, having fired a missile at them as he stood with Thundercracker and Skywarp. The 4 holy swords. Funny, I count 5 of them. Skywarp said. And they don't look so holy to me. They seem to function best as a single unit. Thundercracker observed. Then separate them and pick them off. Starscream ordered. But their leader is mine. Just as the holy swords were able to recover, Thundercracker and Skywarp already flew towards them with boosters on their feet as they each managed to engage 2 at a time. Thundercracker took on Chiba and Asahina while Skywarp engaged Urabe and Senba. Toto's Baraikai got up only to come face to face with the smirking Starscream. Wheeljack thrusted his sword forward to impale the last Vyakon in the area but had to move out of the way to avoid an incoming buzzsaw strike from Knockout. Time for painful little procedure I like to call the nip and tuck. Knockout swung his buzzsaw at Wheeljack which he blocked and parried with one of his swords but Knockout came up with a drill in his other hand, which Wheeljack was also able to block with his other sword. He jumped back to get some distance from the Mad Doctor of the Decepticons. Sorry Doc, but I think you're the one who's gonna need surgery. Wheeljack remarked as he re-engaged the enemy. Bulkhead threw a mace strike at Breakdown's face, who retorted with a hammer to Bulkhead's face. Breakdown then lifted his hammer up high and tried to swing down on Bulkhead, but he caught it with both his hands and tried to press against Breakdown, only for the bulky Decepticon to aim his shoulder-mounted rocket and blast Bulkhead, point blank, sending him flying through multiple trees and into the woods. Breakdown chuckled as he was ready to go in and finish the job, but gave a sudden holler in pain as Ray's Gekka pre-production zoomed past Breakdown, slashing at his chest with his sword before coming to a halt in front of Breakdown. Oops, did I do that? Rai taunted as Breakdown saw the large bleeding cut on his chest. Though it wasn't anything too damaging, it did catch him by surprise. However, it was the voice from the nightmare that caught his attention. He heard it before. Wait a minute, you're that one pilot from Greece. Breakdown recognized him. The same one who blew up the harvester. Yeah, that was me alright. But this time, I'm ready for you. Ray's Gekka twirled his sword and showed off his shiny Surger claw. Why don't you show me what you got, big guy? Breakdown smirked evilly. Bring it, you little meat bag. He formed his hammer again as he ran to try and smash down on him. But Ray's Gekka swerved out of the way easily as he lashed at Breakdown's side with his sword, causing him to grunt in pain as Breakdown swung his hammer at him again, but Rai backed away quickly as Breakdown ran after him. I know I talked big, but this guy can throw Bulkhead around like a rag doll. Rai thought to himself, if he hits me with that thing I'm done. He looked this Surger claw and got an idea. Even though he hadn't grabbed onto anything, he actually activated his Radiant Wave Surger and charged right at Breakdown just as the red energy already pulsated through the palm of his device. Breakdown roared as he swung his hammer down at the Gekka, but Rai thrusted his active Surger claw right at the hammer. The second it made contact, it created a large explosion of red energy that actually sent both Ray's Gekka and Breakdown flying back away from each other. However, they were both quick to get back up as they glared at each other once more. It was pretty much the same all over the Narita Mountain. While the Autobots and a certain select few of Black Knights engaged their respective opposing Decepticon squads, many more Vehicons, at least 100 total, landed all over the mountain and engaged the combined JLF and Black Knight forces in their nightmares. Though the BKs were able to get a few kills in with their high-heat ammunition in their customized beret, the JLF nightmares didn't have as much luck as the Vehicons seemed to lay waste to a vast majority of them. Even with the combined forces of both resistant groups, the Deceptions had them all on the run as their Energon blasters rendered the nightmares to smoking piles of molten scrap in seconds. The Ark, the bridge. Ratchet and Fix-It watched the warzone unfold on the large screen, and needless to say, both of them were very worried, especially the orange Mini-Con. "Oh, sweet Primus," Fix-It muttered. "This is a blaster, master, disaster. We suspected the Decepticons would be too much for the Black Knights alone to handle, but to be overwhelmed like this." Ratchet knew the only way for the Black Knights and his fellow Autobots to survive was to retreat, especially considering Megatron himself was on the battlefield. He immediately contacted everyone. "All Black Knights, prepare for immediate withdrawal." Ratchet relayed to everyone, "I am sending you the coordinates where the extractions will be taking place. Get to whichever point is closer immediately. Help each other if you can, but disengage from any Decepticon forces immediately. Do not face them. Repeat, do not face them." He turned to the Mini-Con. "Fix-It, prepare for multiple emergency ground bridge extractions immediately." "Right." Fix-It pulled out his ground bridge remote and put in the necessary data to begin the retreat. Narita, Optimus and Megatron each laid a powerful punch to the face, forcing them to slide back, though Optimus was quick to recover and get back into the fight. Megatron fired with his fusion cannon, but Optimus batted it away as he opened fire with his Energon blaster, which Megatron also batted out of the way. They repeated the process as Optimus tried to shoot Megatron, but the Tyrant batted the blaster away, forcing Optimus to miss fire, while Optimus batted away Megatron's fusion cannon for the same result. Optimus however was quick to deliver a roundhouse to Megatron's face and shoot him, but Megatron recovered quickly to bat the blaster away again. They batted their guns away 2 more times before both Energon blaster and fusion cannon met and blasted at each other. The combined force from the colliding blasts was enough to send Optimus and Megatron flying and crashing through multiple trees. Optimus was the first to get back up, but Megatron wasn't far behind. However, before either of them could get back into the fight, Megatron was pelted by multiple magnesium ammunition and bullets. He glanced upwards to see at least a dozen combined Black Knight and JLF beret charging down the hill at him. "Open fire. Show that oversized tin can what Japan can do," Inoue exclaimed as she led the charge with the Black Knights and JLF members giving warrior calls as they charged the Decepticon leader. Optimus, eyes widened in surprise and dread. "No. Fall back now," he tried to call to them, but it was too late. Megatron sneered as he extended his blade from his arm and ran at them at a speed impossible for something of his size. The frontmost beret were quickly cut down before they could even blink. Megatron then opened fire with his fusion cannon. Just a few shots were able to wipe out more than half the squad as Megatron went on the offensive with blade strikes, punches, and kicks, rendering the nightmares to scrap, the pilots inside screaming out of fear and agony as they met a painful end. Inoue herself looked in absolute terror. A dozen nightmares were wiped out by one being in less than a minute. "My God," she uttered to herself. What in the world, is he?" She was about to be cut down next by Megatron's blade, but Optimus was quick to save her with a punch to Megatron's face before drawing both his Energon blasters for a charged shot to blast Megatron back at least 100 yards away. "Retreat now," Optimus ordered the still shocked Inoue. "Ratchet has already provided coordinates for the extraction. Rendezvous with whatever our forces are near here and meet at one of those points. Go now." Inoue was still shocked, but she was able to shake her head and regain her bearings. Yes, sir." She turned her beret around and gunned it toward the nearest extraction point as Optimus turned to face the recovering Megatron, who opened fire with his fusion cannon. Optimus drew his blade to slice and deflect the blast as he ran towards Megatron. The Decepticon leader continued to shoot at his enemy, but Optimus deflected every strike before jumping high once he was close enough. Megatron drew his blade once more and met Optimus as he landed. Optimus glared at his foe as they pressed each other's strength against one another. "Why so angry, Optimus?" Megatron teased. "You've done the same thing to my own soldiers, and even to Britannians. How is what I do anything different from what you've already done?" "You know perfectly well," Optimus responded. "I may have killed, but I take no joy in it. While you relish in it." Megatron only responded with an evil smirk, all but confirming Optimus' statement. "You really do know me all too well." They pulled back their blades before clashing metal against metal. Optimus slashed downward, which Megatron blocked before ducking under another slice from Optimus and responding with a horizontal slice, which Optimus collided with a vertical slice of his own. Ironhide threw a punch towards Dreadwing, who blocked it with an arm parry and responded with a punch towards Ironhide's jaw, but the veteran Autobot was quick to recover with an uppercut to Dreadwing's chin, causing him to stagger back. Ironhide ran forward with another punch that Dreadwing was able to parry and swerved behind Ironhide where he slapped one of his titular bombs on his back, that Ironhide didn't seem to notice. Ironhide threw out another punch that Dreadwing jumped backwards to avoid only to raise both his fists and bring them down onto Ironhide's shoulders. However, the Autobot wasn't done yet as he grabbed Dreadwing and tackled him through several trees and pinned him hard to a nearby cliffside. Dreadwing groaned as he tried to wrench himself free from Ironhide's grip, but he wouldn't budge, that is until Dreadwing drove a knee into Ironhide's abs, forcing him to let go of Dreadwing, giving the Decepticon an opening to deliver a roundhouse kick to Ironhide's face, sending him skidding back several feet. But Ironhide was quick to get back on his feet and charge back in at Dreadwing where he landed a powerful slug to Dreadwing's face before delivering another to Dreadwing's abs before firing a charged shot from both his energon cannons at Dreadwing's torso, the blast sending him flying backwards through multiple trees and crashing through a large rock. Ironhide groaned slightly as he rubbed some of the spilled energon from his mouth as he saw Dreadwing got back up. An admirable effort. However, it seems you have forgotten just how resourceful I can be. Dreadwing said as he pulled out his remote detonator to begin his bomb's countdown, but Ironhide wasn't worried at all. "I don't forget anything." Dreadwing's eyes widened as he realized the active bomb was attached to his back. He struggled to take it off, but the second he did, he threw it just as the bomb exploded. Though it was far enough away that it couldn't kill him, the explosion was powerful enough to send him flying and tumbling down a large cliffside. Ironhide grunted. "I may be old, but I still know a few tricks." He then transformed to meet up with whatever Black Knights were available at the nearest extraction point. The Lancelot continued its pursuit of Zero, Bumblebee, Ogi, and Tamaki. Suzaku aimed and fired the Varus around them. He didn't intend to hit any of them, but he had hoped the demonstration of such a powerful weapon would be enough to get them to surrender, but this only made them drive away faster. "Damn, doesn't this guy ever quit?" Tamaki exclaimed. "Tamaki, Ogi, get the nearest extraction point." Zero ordered through the private communications so the Lancelot couldn't hear their plan. "Bumblebee and I will try to lead the Nightmare away, so we don't endanger our comrades." "Wait, Zero, are you sure?" Ogi asked. "I'm sure. Now go." "That's an order," Zero exclaimed. Ogi sighed, but knew his leader had a point. "All right, we'll meet you guys back at the Ark. Tamaki, let's go." "Right." Tamaki voiced with great reluctance, hating the idea of retreating as he and Ogi veered off to the nearest extraction point. But the Lancelot turned and aimed its Varus to block off their path of escape. "I won't let you." Suzaku didn't get a chance to fire as Bumblebee had already turned around and drove under the Lancelot, transforming as he did, while simultaneously grabbing the Varus out of the Lancelot's hands and throwing it off to the side. Suzaku was taken off guard by such an action, which left him open for Bumblebee to come in and score a punch to the Lancelot, knocking it back. Bumblebee tried to press the attack, but the Lancelot was quick to duck underneath the Autobot and sweep his feet to knock Bumblebee down. When the Lancelot tried to punch the downed Autobot, Bumblebee was quick to grab the arm with both his hands and catapult Suzaku off him. However, the Lancelot twirled in the air and drew both its MVS blades to swing down at Bumblebee, who barely rolled out of the way. "That thing is way faster than before. The cons must have given it some upgrades." The Lancelot was about to go on the attack, but was forced to activate its Blaze Luminous shield to block the fire from Zero's barrage rifle. If I can disable the nightmare, we can leave without hurting Suzaku. Damn it, why the hell did you have to be here? And why the hell are you with the Decepticons? Suzaku grunted as he used his Lancelot to jump and soar straight for Zero's Barai, but it backed up before it could swing its MVS blades at him. However, as he landed, Bumblebee grabbed the Lancelot's right hand and was able to drive an elbow into it with his other arm, forcing the Lancelot to let go of the MVS sword in that hand, which Bumblebee took to swing at Suzaku, who blocked it with his remaining MVS. Bumblebee backed closer towards Zero's Barai as he held the MVS and faced the Lancelot. I hope the others are having better luck than we are. Bumblebee spoke to Zero through his bleeps. Chiba and Asahina shot their Barai Kais straight for Thundercracker, who produced his own arm blades to block the katana strikes from both Holy Sword members. Thundercracker's feet boosters ignited to give him a boost and avoid the sword strikes. While airborne, he shot himself downward at the pair, forcing them to retreat and get some distance. Urabe and Senba rolled their own nightmares to avoid the Energon blast shot at them by the airborne Skywarp. Come on, is that all you measly humans got? I thought you were supposed to be tough. Skywarp mocked. Oh, we are plenty tough, pal. Urabe rolled his Barai Kai straight towards a flat rock and used it like a ramp to propel himself straight up at the surprised Skywarp. He cut him along his side to knock him down onto the ground as Urabe landed gracefully. Senba pressed the attack with his own Barai Kai, but Skywarp picked up a large rock to use as a blunt shield and block the attack, allowing him to run backwards and gain some distance with the two holy swords in pursuit. Starscream meanwhile lashed out his claws at Toto's Barai Kai, and laughed evilly the whole time, though Toto blocked each strike with his Nightmare's katana. He swerved under another strike to slice at Starscream's side and knock him back as Toto readied himself to face the recovering Decepticon. You're much tougher than the average human, which isn't saying much. Starscream began. Seeing as you lead this group, the four holy swords, am I correct to assume you're the legendary Kiyoshiro Toto, the Toto of miracles? Toto himself narrowed his eyes as Starscream continued. You may hold your own against those annoying Britannians, but I am in a league far above the rest. I am the mighty Starscream, second in command of the Decepticons. He launched another wrist missile at Toto, who was able to swerve out of the way in his Barai Kai. Your puny nightmare is nothing to the likes of me. I am invincible. Before Starscream could continue, Toto's Barai Kai suddenly shot out from the smoke and sliced at Starscream's chest, giving a large cut before delivering a roundhouse kick to Starscream's face and sending him soaring into the forest, crashing through several trees in the process. You talk too much, Toto commented. Wheeljack meanwhile blocked and parried Knockout's repeated drill and buzzsaw strikes with his swords before swerving around a vertical buzzsaw and delivering a kick to his side. Taking advantage of Knockout's brief disorientation, Wheeljack sliced at his chest to send him flying towards a large rock. Wheeljack tried to press the advantage as he leapt with both his blades, but Knockout caught him by the arms. However, Wheeljack was still able to headbutt Knockout before delivering another kick to his side. Knockout gasped, upon seeing the massive scratch on his paint job from Wheeljack's sword strike. Hey, watch the paint. Knockout tried to thrust his drill at Wheeljack, who actually threw down his swords to catch Knockout by the wrist and haul him over his shoulder before leaping and delivering a punch to the Mad Doctor's face and knock him unconscious. Wheeljack however smirked mischievously as he picked up his swords. You don't like scratches, huh? He purposely dragged the tip of his blade down Knockout's chest to give him a large scratch on his paint job. Try buffing that out. Rai was meanwhile stuck on the defensive, barely able to avoid each strike from Breakdown as he knew that one good strike could probably total his Gekka. He tried to lay in whatever attack he could get with his katana, but all it did was scratch him and barely slow him down. When Rai tried to lash out his katana again, Breakdown caught the Gekka by the wrist and lifted the Nightmare up off his feet. Hope this thing's got cushions inside, Breakdown said with an evil grin as he was ready to completely obliterate the Nightmare. Getting desperate, Rai lunged his Surger claw towards Breakdown's face. Upon seeing the incoming claw, Breakdown instinctively let go of the Nightmare, causing it to fall and miss grabbing onto his face. However, the middle claw was still able to extend and pierce into Breakdown's right eye and completely pull it out as the Gekka landed, and Rai instinctively pulled back just as Breakdown yelled in pain and held his face. Rai looked in surprise as he saw the pierced Cybertronian eye on his claw. Ugh, gross. He shook the claw to shake off the damaged eye. Guess this is what they mean when they say sharp things can poke your eye out, huh? Rai chuckled slightly out of humor. Humor that Breakdown clearly didn't share as he roared both in pain and rage and charged straight at Rai. Uh-oh. The young amnesiac Black Knight couldn't react in time as Breakdown swiped his arm to send the Gekka pre-production flying and crashing into several trees. Breakdown was about to go in for the kill with a hammer strike, but his attack was caught by a certain green Autobot. Why don't you pick on somebody your own size? Bulkhead glared before punching his mace weapon into Breakdown's face and then proceeded to deliver multiple punches, both his fists converted into maces. He didn't even give Breakdown time to recover as he laid one punch after another. After maybe the 10th attack, Bulkhead gave an uppercut to Breakdown's chin to send him crashing to the ground. He then picked up Breakdown by the feet and twirled his massive body before letting go and sending him flying, crashing right into Thundercracker and Skywarp that were still engaging the four holy swords. All three cons crashed at least 100 feet away into the woods while the four holy swords, including Toto, looked to Bulkhead in surprise. Nice throw. Urabe commented. Bulkhead was able to get to the Gekka to see if his friend was okay. Rai, are you alright in there? Rai groaned as he shakily pulled up his blue nightmare. Yeah, I'll live. Nice lob. He chuckled, causing Bulkhead to chuckle as Wheeljack joined them. They then received a communication from Fix-It. Bulkhead, Wheeljack, Rai, most of our forces have been extracted. A ground bridge portal is opening now at your location. I would advise entering it as quickly as possible. The orange mini-con recommended. Right on cue, the ground bridge portal opened up behind them. Don't worry, this one's ours. Wheeljack told Toto and his comrades. Come on, let's go. Bulkhead waved for the JLF members to follow them. No, you go ahead. Toto replied. What? But what about you guys? Rai questioned. We have to secure our own forces. Chiba informed. Thanks for your help, but we're not one of you. You guys can't take on the cons and win though. You're not ready. Bulkhead tried to reason with them. We're not fighting anyone, Asahina said. Our general contacted us and informed us that our surviving forces are already being evacuated. We have to help them. You guys go, but don't worry, I got a feeling we'll be seeing each other again. Senba commented. Bulkhead, Wheeljack, and Rai each exchanged glances with one another. You won't abandon your friends. Wheeljack said with a nod. Okay, I respect that. Thank you for your help. Toto said sincerely. Perhaps one day we can return to favor. Oh, before you go though, give a message to Zero for me. Tell him, Kiyoshiro Toto sends his regards and hopes to see him, again. As Toto led the four holy swords away from the field, the three wreckers looked in surprise. Did he just say, again? Bulkhead questioned. Does that mean, he knows about Lelouch? Rai voiced in worry. We can talk about with the kid once we get out of here. Come on, let's go. Wheeljack said as he and his partners both turned to enter the ground bridge before it closed. Meanwhile, Colin gave a roar as she lashed out her Surger claw straight for Soundwave, who leapt back as he lashed out his tentacles straight at the Gurren, but the Red Nightmare drew its knife and used it in her claw to try and bat away the tentacles before jumping upward to try and deliver a kick to Soundwave. But he actually reached out his elongated arm to catch the Gurren by the throat and hang it up in the air. Colin tried using the extender to increase the length of her Surger claw, gunning straight for Soundwave's face, but both his tentacles came up to ensnare and begin crushing the claw, damaging the Radiant Wave Surger inside. Soundwave then threw Colin hard towards a cliffside, causing it to crash and several rocks to fall over the Gurren. Colin groaned as she was able to pull the Gurren Mk2 up, albeit shakily, to face Soundwave. Looks like I can hurt you, Soundwave replayed Colin's voice if only to taunt her, something that actually made her look in fear as the faceless Decepticon began to approach her. However, Soundwave didn't get a chance to attack as Cliffjumper suddenly appeared behind him and leapt onto his back, grabbing and pulling back on both of Soundwave's arms. Surprise. Didn't forget about us, did you? Cliff taunted as Soundwave tried to shake him off, but this left him vulnerable for RC to slide down below Soundwave and swipe her feet to trip him, before Cliff jumped off and both Autobots landed protectively in front of the Gurren. Guys, Colin voiced in surprise and relief. Picking a fight with Soundwave, huh? Cliffjumper joked. You got guts, kid, but it's gonna take more than that to beat him. How'd you get away from all those mini-cons he had? Colin asked. We didn't. RC scowled as Rumble, Frenzy, and Ravage had leapt or climbed up the cliffside with Laserbeak hovering above them just as Soundwave picked himself up. "Aw, why'd you run away? The fun was just getting started." Frenzy taunted. Soundwave stood as tall as ever as Frenzy, Ravage, and Laserbeak readied their Energon blasters and aimed them at RC, Cliffjumper, and the Gurren with Rumble readying his pile drivers. "Any last words, chumps?" Rumble smirked as RC and Cliffjumper readied their weapons and even Colin's Gurren gripped her knife in a battle stance. However, the fight didn't occur as Soundwave's cracked visor suddenly came to life as a signal was picked up on the Decepticon communication line. But it wasn't coming from any Decepticons in the area, or even from the Nemesis. No, this signal was coming from Cybertron. Soundwave looked upwards and eastbound, causing the two Autobots and the Gurren's pilot to look in surprise. Soundwave then turned down to his mini-cons and silently ordered them to return. "What? But boss, we can get them." Frenzy protested, but Soundwave kept his silent expression focused on them, indicating this wasn't up for debate. "Arlight, fine." Rumble grumbled before turning to the trio. "This ain't over Autobots." He, Frenzy, Ravage, and Laserbeak all returned to Soundwave, who transformed into his Reaper drone vehicle mode and flew away, much to the surprise of the trio. "Hey guys, what just happened?" Colin asked in confusion. "No idea," Cliffjumper responded. "He had us right where he wanted us, why run away?" "We can worry about that later," RC said. "Right now, we need to get out of here." She accessed her comms. "Fix it, we need a ground bridge." Less than a second later, a ground bridge portal opened up behind them. RC and Cliffjumper immediately ran into it with Colin driving her Gurren in right after them before it closed. Bumblebee hacked and slashed his newly acquired MVS blade against the one the Lancelot used, though as Bumblebee had never used a sword like this before, the Lancelot appeared to have the advantage as it blocked another strike and delivered a fierce kick to Bumblebee's chest and sent the yellow Autobot rolling across the forest. The Lancelot activated its blaze luminous shield once more to block the fire from Zero's Barai. Suzaku quickly noticed the Varus rifle was near his position and shot a slash Harken at the Barai, severing its gun arm before making a break for the Varus. "Scrap." Lelouch cursed as he saw the Lancelot pick up the weapon. Suzaku aimed and shot the Varus at the ground below Zero's Barai. The ground exploded, destroying the bottom half of the Black Nightmare just as Lelouch put on his mask and activated the eject to shoot his cockpit out of the destroyed Nightmare. It flew and slid to a halt on the ground. Just as Zero pulled himself out and stood up on the ejected cockpit, the Lancelot had already arrived, but Bumblebee had arrived onto the scene as well, standing protectively in front of Zero and holding the stolen MVS blade tightly just as the Lancelot aimed its Varus at the Autobot. It was a standoff as neither dared to make a move or even speak. Bumblebee kept his optics solely focused on the Lancelot. He knew who piloted it. Even though he didn't know Suzaku personally, he could tell that the young man inside was a good person. He saved Lelouch and Nunnally during the invasion of Japan and helped protected their identity, even though he valued the former prince as his friend, not knowing that Lelouch and Zero were one and the same. But right now, it would seem that he was being used by the Decepticons. Bumblebee wished he still had his voice, if only he could actually speak and try to reason with Suzaku. Suzaku looked with a concerned yet serious expression at both the scout and masked revolutionary. "Zero, I owe you and the Autobots. You saved my life, you've saved my friends' lives and so many other people. I know there are lots of 11s supporting you from the shadows, however, your methods are very wrong." Lelouch's eyes shook underneath his mask, as his best friend had a large weapon pointed right at him. How did it come to this? How did one of his closest friends become such a deadly enemy? It was all the Decepticons. Who knows what lies Megatron has told him, he was practically brainwashed. Lelouch considered taking off his mask to show his face, just so he could talk to Suzaku. He wanted his friend to understand, and he would never use his Geass to force him to join him. However, before anyone made a move, someone else had walked onto the scene, someone that neither Lelouch, Bumblebee, nor Suzaku had expected to see. "CC." Bumblebee voiced in bleeps as the green-haired girl walked in front of the Lancelot, much to Suzaku's surprise as he recognized her instantly. That's the girl from the capsule in Shinjuku. Stop now." CC exclaimed, facing the Lancelot directly. Don't even think about hurting them. Circus C, Zero muttered. What are you doing? Bumblebee questioned. She's working. With Zero. Suzaku wondered in confusion. The mysterious woman had walked right up to the Lancelot and she placed her hand directly onto the White Nightmare's left leg. Wait, are you challenging a nightmare? Zero exclaimed. It's a problem if you die. CC began as her hair began to wave in the wind. As it did, it revealed a red marking on her forehead that resembled the sigil of a Geass. It'll be in direct contact but it's worth a try. Her mark began to glow as she activated her own powers. Suzaku's eyes widened as he was suddenly pulled into a tunnel of colored lights, much like what Lelouch had seen when he formed his contract with CC. Suzaku's whole body turned white as he was bombarded with a series of visions. He saw two worlds facing each other, one resembling Earth, the other being a world made entirely out of metal that he couldn't identify. He also saw two large beings, one surrounded by blue energy like a divine being, the other being surrounded by more chaotic purple energy like something of demonic nature. He saw multiple ancient people in white robes with Geass marks on their foreheads, all praying before falling deeper into the tunnel of lights and colors. When he reached the end, Suzaku found himself in a white void, the only sound being that of a ticking broken clock. But he wasn't the sole occupant of this void, someone else was there, someone that caused his pupils to shrink. A middle-aged large man wearing a military uniform that turned to him and looked to him with a glare. Father, you're dead. That's impossible. Genbu Kururugi walked closer to his shocked son, which only caused him to look in shock even further. No, I didn't mean to, no I just. Back in reality, the whole Lancelot began to shake as Suzaku was still in a state of shock, something that caused Lelouch and Bumblebee to look in concern. What are you doing? Are you using Geass? Bumblebee questioned as Zero walked closer to the mysterious woman. I'm just feeding him some shock images. CC replied. I can't tell what he's seeing though. Anyway, you've got time to get away now. What about you? Zero asked. We'll call a ground bridge and you can. I can't move yet. Don't worry about me. CC replied. The longer you stay, the more likely that the Decepticons will arrive to capture or kill you too. Get going now. Don't be foolish, I can't keep owing you favors. Zero put a hand on her shoulder, but the second he did, CC's eyes widened in fear. No, not no. CC exclaimed as her Geass mark began to glow even further, and visions began to flash in Lelouch's own mind as well. Bumblebee looked in alarm and tried to make a move to grab both Zero and CC, but when his own hands made contact, his optics widened as he began to see visions himself. Lelouch and Bumblebee both saw a familiar tunnel, familiar to Lelouch anyway, but at the end, they both saw a memory of what appeared to be a mob attacking a church, throwing rocks at it, but this church had the emblem of Geass etched into its stone wall. What? This is different. Lelouch thought. What is this? Geass or, what? Bumblebee had similar thoughts himself as the visions continued to play in their mind. They saw a nun praying, with a Geass emblem glowing on her forehead. They saw the Kururugi shrine, which led straight towards the Ares villa before seeing CC herself with a look of despair on her face as she laid naked in a pond, a scar shaped like a Geass mark on her body. Saint, stop it. They heard CC's voice echoing throughout the visions. Stay out of my mind. Both Bumblebee and Lelouch heard screams as they saw chaos, war, and bloodshed, even a little girl crying with a Geass mark in her eyes. Stop. CC's voice cracked, tears flowing down her eyes as these images all played in her mind as well. All these unpleasant memories that she had buried away deep inside her soul over the centuries that she's lived were now coming back to her in a flash flood. You're unveiling me, she, as well as Lelouch, Bumblebee, and Suzaku all saw and heard the same thing now, people screaming as silhouettes of black people walked aimlessly through a white void. A cloud full of skulls and agonized vaches before they all began to vanish and reveal a face appearing to be made entirely out of stone with long curved horns and glowing dark purple eyes that just seemed to radiate evil. Ah, I had to do it. Suzaku's voice screamed from the Lancelot as he couldn't take it anymore. The Lancelot pulled away. As CC lost contact with the Lancelot, she, Bumblebee, and Lelouch were pulled back into reality, but Suzaku still appeared to be seeing these images as he aimlessly shot the Varus in every direction. Bumblebee instinctively tried to cover the pair, but a blast from the Varus not only knocked him back, but shot shrapnel of rock from the ground. One large piece managed to pierce CC's chest. CC! Zero exclaimed in shock. Bumblebee immediately got back up and ran towards the Lancelot. He pulled the Varus out of its hands before delivering a powerful punch to the face and sent it crashing to the ground, apparently knocking Suzaku out as the Lancelot didn't seem to move right after. The yellow Autobot then transformed back into his vehicle mode and drove up to Zero as he picked up the gravely injured CC bridal style. Get in. No need to be told twice. Zero brought CC into the car and it drove off just as Bumblebee contacted the Ark. Ratchet. Ground bridge. Now. A portal opened up right in front of the yellow car before it drove straight in, with Lelouch and CC safely inside, just before the portal closed. Optimus grunted as he sliced down at Megatron, who blocked it with his own blade. Optimus pressed forward with another slice, but Megatron parried the attack and drove a fist right into Optimus' face before delivering a fierce kick to knock Optimus back several yards. The last of the Primes quickly got back up however and transformed into his vehicle mode and gunned it straight for Megatron, ramming into him and sending him crashing throughout the forest behind them. Optimus kept driving and pushing, knocking Megatron back against multiple trees, rocks, and other obstructions before slamming Megatron hard into a large cliffside. Megatron however was able to grab the front of Optimus' truck before using his own strength to throw it far to the left, sending the vehicle mode crashing through several more trees before Optimus transformed back and landed on his feet. Megatron rushed towards Optimus, who was able to give a solid uppercut to his face, but Megatron countered with a kick to Optimus' abs to force him back. Optimus would have continued the fight if Ratchet hadn't contacted him. Optimus, all our forces, including Zero, have been evacuated. I'm opening a ground bridge at your location now. A single ground bridge portal opened behind Optimus, who brought up his Energon blasters to shoot at Megatron and give himself some cover before running into the portal, which closed shortly after. Megatron chuckled slightly as he wiped some of the spilled Energon from his mouth. You're as strong as ever, Optimus. Good, I wouldn't want you anything less as I snuff out your spark. Lord Megatron, all the surviving Black Knights have fled the area. Starscream contacted him, and the JLF appears to be evacuating as well. Shall we give pursuit? Negative. Megatron contradicted. The Japan Liberation Front is not our concern. Have all units return to the Nemesis, our job here is done. And have Dreadwing escort Suzaku back to the Special Corps and inform me of his progress. Yes, Master. Starscream cut off before Megatron transformed and flew into the sky. The Ark. All Black Knights had returned to the Ark as their nightmares were brought into the bay for any repairs and modifications they may lead. Several of them seemed to celebrate their victory over Britannia, however their celebration was cut off as a few had lost their friends to the Decepticons. Among the groups talking were Cliffjumper, Tamaki, Ogi, RC, Inoue, Colin, Rai, Bulkhead, and Wheeljack. Man, can you believe it? Tamaki voiced. We were totally whooping Britannia's ass, then the cons come in and totally ruin our party. I knew they were strong, but I didn't expect them to be so powerful. Ogi voiced. Welcome to our world, RC said. There's a reason the cons are still around. Well, I believe you, we even had trouble against their foot soldiers. Ogi pointed out. Viacon troopers. Wheeljack explained. Standard Decepticon infantry. Yeah, they can be tough in large groups, but the more you fight them, the more you can understand how they fight. Yeah, I'd recommend fighting them from a distance, avoid close combat. Bulkhead told them. At least we know that magnesium stuff works. The Radiant Wave Surger seems to have the same kind of effect on them as it does nightmares. Rai recalled. But, will it be enough? Inoue voiced, getting everyone's attention. Her eyes were still shaky as she remembered Megatron decimating a dozen nightmares in an instant. I saw their leader tear apart a whole unit of nightmares like they were nothing. Megatron. RC almost growled as she narrowed her eyes. Yeah, he's pretty much the strongest con out there. Bulkhead said. I'd recommend letting Optimus handle him. No argument here. Colin agreed. I was barely able to hold my own against one Decepticon with the Gurren and I thought that thing was unstoppable. That wasn't just any Decepticon, Colin. That was Soundwave, RC told her. He's the Khan surveillance chief, and arguably the most dangerous Decepticon right next to their leader. He's right up there in the top 3. Especially with that squad of mini-Khans he's got on hand. Cliffjumper explained. As tension fell on most of the Black Knights and a few of the Autobots, Tamaki of all people chose to look at the bright side. But hey, don't forget we totaled an entire army of Britannian nightmares. We thought we couldn't fight them before, but now we got them on the run. Who's to say we can't do the same for the Khans? Hey, that's right. Ogi seemed to smile slightly. We almost destroyed Cornelia's entire army. Maybe with more training, we might be able to fight back against the Khans. Well, I'd say you guys got the potential for it. Wheeljack pointed out with a sincere smile. But don't get too cocky, that's my job. This erected a laugh from every knight and bot present. Even RC smiled slightly as Bulkhead patted his best friend's back. Rai noticed however a few people missing. Hey, where's Zero and Bumblebee? I thought they came back. Rai asked. B went to speak with Optimus, Ratchet, and Ironhide. Bulkhead answered. Zero is in the med bay. Med bay. Is he hurt? Colin asked with concern. No, he's fine. Bulkhead replied. But someone else got hurt, so he and Fix-It are tending to her right now. Her. Rai voiced as he instantly thought of CC and wondered why she would need medical attention. The bridge. Bumblebee had spoken with Optimus, Ratchet, and Ironhide, on the bridge of their ship base privately to discuss the visions he saw when he and Lelouch made physical contact with CC. Needless to say, they were all surprised, even Optimus' optics widened. You saw Cybertron? Ironhide exclaimed. I think so, Bumblebee bleeped. Briefly, but it looked like the planet was right next to Earth. That's impossible, Ratchet voiced. Aside from the fact that Cybertron is light years away from this planet, it's physically impossible for two planets to be within any close proximity to one another. Bumblebee, did you say you also saw CC in the past? Optimus asked. Yep, Bumblebee began. They were all just images, like multiple pictures flipping in and out. I think there may have been other people in the past that have had Geass, and maybe CC might be older than we think. Because I saw things that looked like what Earth did centuries ago. Centuries? Ironhide voiced in surprise. Has that girl really lived for that long? I cannot understand how that is even possible. Ratchet voiced. Human biology permits a being to last 100 years at the very most. The idea that she's lived multiple lifetimes and maintains her youth is beyond any form of reasonable explanation. Lelouch has told us that he has seen CC fatally shot, just before he received his Geass ability from her. Optimus recalled. Perhaps the ability that allows her to grant Geass to others, is also what has kept her alive all this time. I'm a bit more concerned by what Bumblebee said about other people with Geass. Ironhide said. Does this mean she's given it to others before? Could there still be some alive today? Ratchet began to think. We seem to have more questions than we do answers. Even more surprising is Bumblebee seeing these visions himself. We've seen that Lelouch's Geass has no effect on us, due to the energy it radiates being weaker than that of our sparks. So why could this affect you, Bumblebee? Ratchet asked the scout directly. Maybe her power is stronger than Lelouch's. One thing remains certain however. Optimus spoke. We must keep a close watch on CC. Optimus, when I saw those visions, I could hear her crying. Bumblebee began, causing Optimus, Ironhide, and Ratchet to look at him in surprise. Those were her memories, and none of them were good ones. She's lived for hundreds of years and has seen all kinds of wars. She's lived through hell, the same kind of hell that we lived through during the war for Cybertron. I don't really know CC, but I do know this. She needs help, she needs a friend. The medical center. Lelouch had his mask and cape off as he and Fix-It watched over CC as she laid on a bed unconscious. She doesn't appear to have suffered any sort of physical damage. Fix-It said. Her ability to heal rapidly from even the most fatal of injuries is responsible. Invisible, phenomenal. I don't think she's human, it's not possible. Lelouch said as he brushed away her hair to reveal the Geass emblem on her forehead. All her DNA samples seem to indicate she shares the same physical traits as a human. Fix-It pointed out. Yes, but I've seen her suffer fatal wounds and heal from them almost instantly. Not to mention there's her ability to grant Geass. Lelouch recalled. As they both contemplated, they heard a knock on the door. Zero, it's Rai. Can I come in? Yes, Lelouch answered. The door opened and Rai walked into the medical center and was greeted by Fix-It. Hello Rai, how is everyone else doing? Pretty good, considering what just happened. Rai answered. A lot of our own forces got totaled by the Khans, and even our most elite were put on the defensive. They're a lot stronger than I thought they'd be. As expected, we are dealing with the most dangerous beings in the known universe after all. Fix-It responded. Rai then turned his attention to Lelouch and the unconscious CC. How's she doing? Physically, she seems to be fine. Otherwise, I have no idea. I have no idea who she even is. Lelouch began. Clovis confined her for his private experiments, so she's not connected to Britannia. Before anyone could respond, all three of them heard a slight groan from CC, who appeared to be talking in her sleep. But what she said, nobody could have expected. Sarah, she smiled in her sleep. You finally called me, by my real name. G1 base. Cornelia and what was left of her forces were brought back to their mobile base that was already on its way away from Narita. And needless to say, no one in the Britannian military present was happy with the outcome. Zero and the Autobots escaped again. Cornelia muttered. The Japan Liberation Front appeared to have escaped as well. Guilford reported. They used the confusion ensued by the Decepticons' attack to slip away. Cornelia's fists clenched with rage. My entire army was all but wiped out. We even lost half of the Glaston Knights elite. I lost to them again. I lost to him again, and he didn't even face me himself. Guilford knew Cornelia was referring to Optimus Prime, but chose not to say anything as he feared anything he said wouldn't make her feel any better. And I had to be rescued. By not just those Decepticons, but an 11 as well. Cornelia muttered angrily. The Nemesis, the bridge. Well, that went well. Skywarp voiced as he, Thundercracker, and Starscream reported directly to Megatron. The enemy escaped, how can that be categorized as, went well? Thundercracker questioned. Not all of them escaped. Starscream pointed out. Quite a few Black Knights met their demise, and even most of the Liberation Front was wiped out. But not a single Autobot was terminated. Thundercracker argued. And the Black Knights have shown that even their nightmares can damage our own forces. Yes, the Black Knights have proven more capable than we thought. Megatron mused. But now, we seem to have a full grasp of their forces, even though we didn't destroy them this time, we'll try again. I'm more concerned with Kururugi at the moment. Starscream rolled his eyes, still thinking about that measly human. This battle was a test to see whether or not the boy was worthy, and he passed with flying colors. Megatron said, he'll be inducted within our ranks as soon as possible. Suzaku Kururugi is one of us now. Forgive me, Lord Megatron, but I don't think he's mentally prepared for that, given what just happened recently. Thundercracker pointed out. Oh, Megatron raised an eyebrow. Kururugi encountered the Autobot named Bumblebee and Zero, afterwards he spiraled into a frenzy but was quickly brought down. Thundercracker reported. Maybe a seizure or a spaz attack or whatever it is humans call it. Skywarp brushed off. Where is he now? Megatron asked. With Dreadwing and the Special Corps Unit. Starscream answered. Though Dreadwing himself was incapable of standing inside the large truck that served as the base for the Lancelot and its pilot, he expressed concern for his comrade as glanced towards it. While inside, Suzaku was placed on a bed as his whole body was shaking and he muttered nonsense like a machine gun. Though Lloyd had his usual smile, both Cecile and Euphemia looked towards him with great concern. The Ark Medical Center. CC had woken up as Fix-It reported her physical status. Your wounds have completely healed, so you should be back to normal. Tending to me wasn't necessary. CC said pointedly. Gee, way to say, thank you. Rai rolled his eyes, but Lelouch merely smiled as he said one single word. Sarah. The woman's eyes widened with an audible gasp as she heard that name. That's your name, isn't it? Lelouch asked as the woman apparently named Sarah glared at him. You have a bad habit of eavesdropping. Hard not to when you talk in your sleep. Rai pointed out. And personally, I like Sarah, it's a pretty name. Circus C, sounds like the name you'd give a machine. No offense, Fix-It, he quickly said to the mini-con. None taken. I like Sarah, too, it's charming. Fix-It added. Oh, that's a joke. Who wants to be more human? the woman said scornfully before her voice began to crack, causing the three around her to look with surprise and concern. After all I've forgotten everything. Every single thing, so what's the use of it? Tears were already flowing down her eyes. A name? But why? Sarah. Do I even deserve something like that? Rai immediately came up to her and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. It's okay. If there's someone who gets it, it's me. I forgot my own past and I don't know if I'll ever remember it. But, I think I might be okay with it. Because, I've got a life here, and friends to help me through it, Lelouch, everyone at Ashford, even the Autobots and the Black Knights. Rai smiled. And you can have that too, if you'd open up a bit to others and not close yourself off to everyone. Chera's eyes widened as tears continued to flow. For the first time in her life, she didn't have a response to give. Some of Ray's words even impacted Lelouch a bit. It wasn't too long ago that he closed himself off from everyone excluding his own sister. But since he started this whole journey, he too began to crawl out of his shell. All the Autobots knew him for who he is and accepted him regardless, even Rai knows. He'd be lying to say if he wasn't grateful for all they've done for him. Hey, listen, he spoke to CC directly. I never got a chance to thank you for helping me, way back in Shinjuku, and for helping me today. If it weren't for you, I'd probably be dead, and I would have never met the Autobots. So, thank you. Rai and Fixit were surprised at first by Lelouch's honesty before they smiled at him, but Sarah appeared to be the most touched by it. No one's ever thanked me before. Sarah stuttered as tears of joy began to flow down her eyes, and Rai kept a comfortable hand on her shoulder. So, can you show your appreciation? Say my name again, like you did before. Just this once with tenderness like you treasure it in your heart. Whoa there, kinda rushing it don't you think? Rai joked, and even CC laughed slightly. Alright, Sarah. Lelouch said her name, trying to sound as sincere as possible. How was that? It was terrible. Sarah replied bluntly. There was nothing tender or warm about it at all. Someone's picky. Rai voiced. Let me try, Sarah. That better. Well, if nothing else, you at least sounds like you're trying to be sincere about it. Sarah. Fixit said, only to end up glitching and repeating the name over and over. Sarah. 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 Lelouch gave a smack to Fixit's back to get him to stop. Thank you. Don't mention it. Great, now my name's a glitch. Sarah muttered. Okay, well craziness aside, I'm glad we're finally getting to know you, Sarah. Rai smiled, and even CC smiled as well. There was a knock on the door. Hello. Zero, are you in there? I heard Rai was looking for you, is everything okay? Oh Colin, Rai tried to come up with an excuse, but Lelouch put a hand on his shoulder and shook his head. Maybe it was time he started to expand his circle of trust a little bit more. Colin, you can come in. Lelouch said. Are you sure? Fixit asked. I'm sure. Lelouch nodded just as the door opened. Zero, sorry to bother you Colin stopped in her tracks as her eyes set on Lelouch's face, clad in his suit with the Zero mask and cape aside on a table. Though the appearance of CC was a surprise, including the looks on Rai and Fixit's faces, nothing could prepare her for the true face of Zero to appear before her. Hello Colin. Lelouch greeted. Narita. The sun was setting as a large truck began to drive out of the city. This truck was driven by scientists, part of the secret research group known as Code R, as they carried two familiar capsules in the back. Come on, the military is gone. Now is our chance to get out of this city. One scientist said to the driver. I'm going as fast as I can. The driver replied. On the passenger seat sat the man named Joseph Finette, who remained silent as he glanced at the pictures of his wife and daughter in his locket. However, the truck would soon come to a halt as a certain Reaper drone passed by them before it transformed to reveal Soundwave as he landed right in front of the truck. The truck came to a stop as it slammed into Soundwave's legs. All the scientists on board looked up in terror at the sight of the faceless Cybertronian. Soundwave glanced down towards the vehicle that was no longer operable, but he wasn't here for them. His cracked visor lit up as the same signal reached him again. Soundwave reconfigured the space bridge systems that was built into his body before he opened a small space bridge portal in front of him and the disabled truck. At first, nothing exited through the portal, but soon there was the sound of large and pounding footsteps coming out of it before a single being exited. He was a Cybertronian, clearly a Decepticon, but he was among the feared Decepticons in the entire ranks, even alongside Soundwave and Megatron himself. This Decepticon had purple metallic skin with a large bulky frame. He had a large cannon for his left arm. But what stood out was the single red eye that served as his whole head. This was the dreaded Decepticon scientist known as Shockwave. Soundwave. Shockwave greeted in a cold and straightforward tone as he stepped out of the portal before it closed. "You have received my transmission." Soundwave nodded in confirmation. Shockwave then began to observe his newfound surroundings, even catching the attention of the truck behind Soundwave and the terrified scientists still inside it. However, both Decepticons found themselves gazing down toward the street as they saw a single Britannian pilot, one who was grievously injured, stumbled deliriously in front of them. "I swear I'm not orange, Zero," Jeremiah uttered before collapsing at the feet of the two Decepticons. And this is the end of part 8 of this What If. I hope you guys like it. Do not forget to leave a